Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Hash Church. I myself am just freshly back from a camping trip, so give me a little bit of time and I'll get everyone invited in for the link. I hope everyone's having a good Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, of course. And yeah, we're going to have a nice little episode today. So stick around. Let's see what we got to do here. We got to copy this. There we go. Well, I'm excited for today's episode. Looking forward to talking a little with Tim Blake and Alec from SC Labs. Todd McCormick helped set that up, so we're very happy that he did. All right, so we will send the link out. I see Todd and Tim and Etienne have seen it, so we could probably expect them in the near future. And yeah, we got a whole bunch of people holding down the chat room right now. Nice to see, and absolutely happy Father's Day. And thank you all for the Father's Day blessings that you have passed my way. I do appreciate it.
Well, happy Father's Day.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Happy Father's Day to you and all the fathers.
Sorry about that, Etienne. I had my thing turned off. What was that?
I said happy Father's Day. And to you and all the fathers.
Yes, absolutely. Here we are on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Well, early before noon, actually. It's 9 a.m., but somewhere it's afternoon. How you doing, Todd?
I'm melting.
Melting? Is it like 107 degrees?
It's damn warm.
Forrest hit me up this morning, and he was just like, dude, I wish I was a little higher north today.
I'm with him at that point right now.
Yeah, it's pretty. He said it was 107 or 108 degrees.
Oh, that's meltable.
Yeah, that's like hot yoga. You heat up a room to do hot yoga. It's about 110 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, it's just
Todd, look,
cool right now.
It's a fatty for Father's Day.
I love it.
Fatties for Father's Day. That is awesome.
Have a fatty for your father today. This one is in memory of mine. Mine passed away this year, my stepfather, who was really my father. So this is my first one without him. So much love to Joe, my family.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. I might need to make a new message today. I don't know if anyone got those. Give me a couple minutes.
I just sent it to Tim and Alex as well.
I had sent it to them as well, but I think the way it happened this morning that things did not get sent the way they should have gotten sent. So
it should be a good conversation today. They're going to come on and we're going to talk about the way they're doing their new test for the country fair that's happening in Laytonville in July. They've broken the categories into 5 different categories based on terpene expressions.
Oh, yeah, you said that. That looks really cool.
I thought that was neat. Yeah.
Well, that would be a first of its kind.
Yes. Leave that up to the people at the Emerald Cup, of course. I think
we have to push, it's good to see things pushing in a different direction, at least challenging the status quo.
Yeah, and I think they're defining cannabis culture in a lot of ways. They are not waiting for permission. They are actually coming out and doing it really well. This new event that they're doing is based solely on organic horticulture, which I think is really great. It's like the old timers stepping up and saying, hey, we have to be stewards of the environment. We have to pay attention to what we're doing. And I think that's fantastic, personally.
Well, it's nice to see them changing it up and doing something a little bit different. And, the importance of terpenes, as we have learned in the last 20 years. Hey, welcome, Sam.
Saying, hey, we have to be stewards of the environment. We have to pay attention to what we're doing. And I think that's fantastic.
It's like deja vu.
That was such a weird deja vu. I was like, I've heard this before. The importance of terpenes, as we have learned in the last... He's still going.
I keep repeating the same shit.
I'll just mute him. He'll figure it out. The terpenes are the terps are where it's at. Well, they're definitely a part of it for sure. A very important part that maybe for a long time we weren't quite as aware of. Seems like the community is becoming more and more aware.
Tim's here.
Oh, welcome, Tim.
Where's the sound?
There you are. We can
hear you, Tim. Good morning. Happy Father's Day. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
Happy Father's Day,
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Hey, happy Father's Day to you too.
We only got you for an hour,
You guys have,
right?
yeah.
Well, we'd love to give you the floor. Could you please tell us a little bit about what you're doing up in Laytonville and the new country fair? And then we wanted to ask you about the new competition and how you are breaking it into terpenes and that you've changed the categories.
Well, can you guys hear me good?
Very well.
Okay. So what's going on is that I've been calling the Emerald Cup a Cannabis Country Fair for 14 years. And of course, we do it in the wintertime where it's not the best weather for a fair type environment. So I talked with Jonathan Baldwin a few years back, and he held the domain name for me. And a friend of mine wanted to come along and try to do that last year at Black Oak Ranch, and failed kind of miserably with it. And I went back and said, you know what? That was my name. That was my show. I'd like to do that and make something good for the Emerald Triangle people and the community of Mendocino, because they're all kind of disappointed we took the Emerald Cup out of the Triangle and down to Santa Rosa. So we thought we'd bring something back home for everybody up here and do a weekend event where you can camp out and actually hang with people. You know, the Emerald Cup and a lot of these competitions or shows, they're so hectic. You're running your booth. You barely have a chance to even spend 5 minutes with anybody. I hardly even see anyone. I've got to go back and see who showed up through all the videos. And so I was like, okay, let's do a weekend event where people stay for the weekend. We'll make it a really community-based thing. We'll bring the best of the Emerald Triangle vendors in. And we'll do a new type of competition that we've been wanting to do. Alec Dixon's been bugging me forever. So we thought we'd do all that and put a great show together. Now, I'm working with some new partners. They're very quiet, and they never use their name. So I'm not even supposed to really honor them. In fact, if you look at the introduction for the Cannabis Country Fair, we really didn't even introduce them except for very vague. It's because they're quiet. They're not ego-based. I'm working with a new group of people out of Red Light Management. The guys that discovered Dave Matthews, they have Fish. It's the most respected talent agency in the world for music. They also are partners in many festivals, but they don't put their name on anything. They're not ego-based. The gentleman who owns the thing privately never puts his name into anything. So I'm probably going to get a little flack for even going into this much because, like I said, they're just a very quiet, reserved company, but they're very powerful. Stuart Ross, who produced the first 360 Lollapaloozas, is helping manage the show. And the idea is that we'll turn it into like a Lollapalooza and take it around the country and integrate alternative lifestyles and the agricultural techniques and the medicine and everything that we do, and take it around and, you know, show it off to Michigan and the East Coast and down south and Texas and stuff, because that's what they do. We've got Charlie Hernandez, who's out with U2 right now. He's produced and production managed, all the Farm Aid shows. He's on the board of directors. He was out with Neil. He's the production manager for us. So we had some issues last year with the Emerald Cup. As we all know, it got out of control with so many people coming in, and we extended the contest accidentally, which gave us a train wreck with 850 entries the last 3 days. It was out of control. So we really looked at it, and even though we had a good experience with our partners last year, we had the opportunity to work with Red Light and come in and bring them in, and we decided that we wanted to move up to the next level so that we could be, you know, hold up to that standard as the best show in the world. So we've got Charlie and Stuart with us for the Cannabis Country Fair and the Emerald Cup. We have another partner, Red Light, Jim Louie, who's helping produce the show. He created a festival back in the 80s called the Horde Festival. He worked with Irving Azoff for 10 years. He's an amazing, I mean, everybody there is amazing. He's an incredible individual. Happy Father's Day to all of them. And that's this new team that we're coming together with the Cannabis Country Fair so that we can take it on the road and work with people like you and everybody else to help showcase who we are.
You know, Tim, there's
kind of a long-winded answer, but
there's not. It's a great answer. There's not a better example of culture I'd like to see demonstrated around the country than what you've done with the Emerald Cup, and I'm sure what will happen with the Country Fair. I mean, even though you say it's gotten out of control, it is the most community-based event, in my opinion, that you can attend anywhere in the world. I mean, you go to places like in Europe, everybody comes from everywhere else, but there's just such a core group community with what you're doing that I just think is fantastic.
Yeah, well, that word out of control, maybe that was a little heavy-handed. It was just that elements, when you get that many people, we've learned things. And like we had 300 extra people that tried to get into Damian Marley. Now, we've never had a problem in the past because by the end of the night, there's so many people that are so high, they don't even want to go to the show. So we let the first 3,500 in. It's never been a problem because it's just worked. this year, about 400 people wanted to see Damien, and they came to just see Damien. And it was sad because they couldn't get in there, and the fairgrounds wouldn't open up and let those extra few hundred people in. And then the contest was kind of a challenge because so many late entries. You get 850 entries the last 3 days. I mean, how can people judge that? So we've changed the rules for the Emerald Cup. We're going to shorten the timing. We're going to give the testing a lot more space. We're going to give the judges clean medicine, and we're going to rectify everything that wasn't perfect, because you know what? It's amazing. You can be an 8-cylinder car, and if you're running on 7 cylinders, it still won't be a perfect ride, even though it's running almost perfect. So the Emerald Cup, from what everybody saw, really went well, but we see the few things we're going to correct, and we're starting with the Cannabis Country Fair to get them all in.
Sounds like you got the right people on board, Tim. I mean, wow, that's great to see. Really.
You know what? They came to us. They had vetted out about 140 cannabis companies, and they decided they wanted to work with us. And I'm very proud and honored to have them with us. It's really still the Emerald Cup presenting a Cannabis Country Fair, but to know that they're the ones helping with the show, the organization and whatnot, gives me a lot of comfort that we can deal with the other aspects.
No, that's a key aspect, and that's needed. I actually did the Horde tour myself many moons ago in a galaxy far, far away. So yeah, I know the professionalism that goes into it and what's needed, and that was a very well-run gig altogether. So just from the listing of the cadre you have there, it's quite impressive, and it's great because it shows that you're taking it serious, and vendors want to know that. The people that attend don't really understand what happens around the, in the backwoods of what actually takes and transpires. I have an idea. I've thrown events, not of course of this caliber, but that's great, Tim. Thank you very much for coming on and making us well aware of what's transpiring, and thank you for stepping up your own game.
I do have a question for you, Tim. This is Sam here. What I'm interested in is you're saying that there will be 5 dominant terpene varieties.
Yes.
Sort of a contest between picking out the best of these 5 different terpene dominant varieties, correct?
Yes. And
are those going to be type 1, type 2, or type 3 plants? In other words, THC, CBD and THC, or CBD?
Well, we're not going to do CBD for this contest. We decided to tighten up and just go with concentrates and light depot and do a small contest. It was a last-minute show that we put together. There's a lot of other events. You got Dougie doing Chalice down there, and so we thought we'd just start with a small contest. Stay out of people's way and just get going with it. There's so many different ways you can run the contest. So many people want
when you say a terpene dominant variety, you mean also a THC dominant variety with a particular terpene dominant.
So it's
well, that sounds really good, because I was worried that you were going to mix up the 3 type 1, type 2, and type 3 plants, and that would have been crazy, because how can you compare a CBD variety to a THC variety side by side just by terpene content? It wouldn't work.
You know what? I'm mixed up enough, and I think everybody else is, so we don't need to do any more than we already got. There's so much for us to learn and be educated on.
But terpene dominance, that is the future, for sure.
So the 5 terpenes.
It is the future, and I want to give a shout out really quickly to Kevin Jodry and the Golden Tarp, who basically started this direction, of course, with Dominic Corpia with the Terpa Festival, and then you've got Jeremy Plume and Jesse Dodd up there with the Cultivation Classics. So these 3 groups really spearheaded the direction of that. Even though Alec Dixon has been bugging me for years to go in this direction, they jumped in and did it, and it's really a big shout out to Kevin Jodry and the folks at Wonderland and the Golden Tarp that really spearheaded that up in Garberville.
And does that have to be a natural extraction from plant material, or can it be fabricated with natural terpenes and THC distillate?
Well, we're doing a separate distillate contest, and so you can do that. We'll have a CO2 contest, and the concentrate contest will all be natural extraction. The distillate contest, we're opening that up. We're recognizing that. I mean, I tried Tony Mendocino, who's the creator of the Skittles and whatnot, and Fields. They have an ethanol cartridge that, I finally found a cartridge. I mean, we have CO2 cartridges. They're nice. But this ethanol distillate cart was just stunning. I mean, it was the first thing I'd ever tasted, which had expansion. Actually, almost tasted like you were smoking a joint. except for the clean taste. And it hit well all the way down. So the future is obviously going to be ethanol distillates for the cartridges. And so we're bringing that distillate contest in to recognize that. Even though ethanol is still considered a violent solvent, we got to get realistic here. I mean, it's not. And even hexane and propane and butane are going to be allowed in. They're bringing them in. The state's going to allow them in. So under the right conditions, these are going to come in, and we're going to let them into the cup. We're just waiting for the legalization to come in.
What is the THC level of a ethanol cartridge like this? In other words, if you looked at it as THC as a percentage of the weight or volume, what is it? Do you have any idea?
You know, I don't know. Those are the first real ethanol carts that I'd seen come in, and there wasn't any information with them. I've been hitting them for the last couple of weeks and trying them out with everybody that I know, all the hardcore people that don't want cartridges in their lives, and they're all going, you know what? I'd probably hit this. In fact, I would. I like this. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really
they use heat.
I'm doing as much research as I can on ethanol
to vaporize the extract, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because 20 years ago, we tried an ethanol extracted from resin material, and it worked pretty good, but I myself personally, I couldn't handle it. It was ethanol based, but it was nebulized with ultrasonics.
Well, you know, leave it to the brilliant people of this country and this world to figure out new ways to do things. So, you know, we've gone from, you know, where I come from, just, you know, puffing on joints, to where you've got the leading scientists in the world figuring out how to do all this. It's so far beyond me. I just, you know, my hat's off to all of them, and I just want to enjoy it.
Can I ask you, Tim, what was these 5 terpenes that you're going with? Terpinolene, pinene, limonene, caraphenolene, and myrcene. Are those the 5 most prominent terpenes in cannabis?
Well, according to Alec Dixon and SC Labs and what they're doing, you know, you've got so many others. But I think that, you know, talking to Alec, he thought that we could have them all fall into those ranges. And so, of course, I defer to them. They're going to be the ones that separate the entries into the categories for our judges. And, you know, looking at it, you know, like I said, there's so much to learn. I'm old school. We were doing the cup, you know, just everything against itself. We used to have a best morning bud contest so that the Blue Dreams and stuff would have a chance. This is a very different structure of how to do it. I'm excited to see how it works. I'm hoping that it works so well that we can bring it right into the cup. It gives a lot more room for different strains to win. I mean, how's a Blue Dream or a train wreck? We've talked about that in the judging forever. Oh, this is a stunning Blue Dream. How's it going to beat a Fuel, you know? So this gives all those different strains a chance to compete, to get honored. It brings back, and you know, with the concentrates going in that direction so much, I mean, who wants to just, you know, hit a dab of OG? You're looking for cookies, you're looking for Skittles, you're looking for Durban Sherwood of ours. And so in the concentrates, these even more pronounced. It's time to really recognize that what we're looking for are these terpene profiles. And so let's honor them and give everybody a chance to win prizes off of those.
I would agree with most of the terpenes you picked, but caryophyllene does not potentiate or modulate THC as far as I know. I know I tried it and I couldn't get it to modulate it.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. You know
it's
what?
It's not so much about the modulation, correct, Tim? It's more about the expressions that are shown in the test that SC Labs is doing. I think it's Sam, running all these tests, they're seeing caraphenolene and things like Gorilla Glue, Chem, Girl Scout cookie, sherbet, Skittles, the stuff that there's the Cannabis Country Fair has a really good page on this listed under contest, and it talks about the different categories for the terpenes. And Alex is supposed to be joining us as well today, so maybe we can get more information out of him too.
Yeah, you know what? He is brilliant. I'll tell you what, Alec and Josh and the guys at SC, it's just amazing what they're doing. And, you know, they have put it together well. There's a lot of different ways you can go. There's so many different varieties. I mean, you could have expanded this out, but then how do you close down the contest? You know,
well, in truth, there's only so many terpenes with modulation and potentiation. A lot of the terpenes do not modulate and do not potentiate THC, for example. So you might want to start with those first.
Well, boy, we should get you on a panel talking about this.
Yeah, but I live in Europe, and I don't think I'll come to California just to attend it.
Well, there's an extended offer if you ever want to come over.
Yeah.
Because I think that talking about this is how people are going to be educated. And there's a lot of education that needs to take place.
And I know a lot of people say that caryophyllene is important for medicinal use because it's a CB2 binder. But if you want to get high, you don't want a CB2 binder. You want a CB1 binder.
Well,
yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, it's like I said, we're all going to go through this contest together and then go through the Emerald Cup. And it's going to be something that everybody's going to really learn a lot about, because really, as I go out there and talk to people, there's so little information that people really know. I mean, we're sitting here talking about it, but most people are still in the dark.
Are the concentrates going to be in the same categories?
Yes. Concentrates are going to be broken down into terpene profiles, which is, they had to convince me to do that. I'm old school, so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, it's nice we're doing it at the Cannabis Country Fair, but when you look at the concentrates, look at all the flavors that are coming in and the terpene profiles that are there. So it really naturally breaks down into those categories too, as far as winners and what people are looking for.
I agree with you, Tim. It is a natural way to do it. What would be kind of interesting is if they would also, besides a printout of the terpene and cannabinoid content of the extract, also have it of the original herb the extract was taken from, so that you could see what has altered in the extract versus the original herb. And I'm talking about altering the cannabinoid or terpene profiles.
That's very interesting. You know, that's a very good suggestion, actually. Boy, I wish we had more time before this contest to have taken a lot of this in.
Tony,
this came on very quickly. We did this from a running start.
Tony did a little bit through SC Labs with Blue River, where they tested the bud and then they tested the terpene profile of the terpenes that were extracted. And there were little minor changes, but fairly accurate. It was pretty interesting. Definitely a good idea.
It depends how rough your extraction is. The sesquiterpenes stick around much stronger than the monoterpenes. If you're really, really gentle, the monoterp should be all there and pretty close to the original profile as in the herb.
Right. I think the ones that I saw, there were just a few that had actually like one had disappeared and a new one had shown up. Terpene, which was kind of interesting. Maybe Alec can talk about it when he gets in from Messi.
You know, the Cultivation Classic guys up there, Jeremy and the Phylos people, with what they're doing is really interesting. They put it all in the Cultivation Classic, and you can see how it fits and where it's going and how the genetic, you know, background goes. And I think you're going to see more of that. We're going to try to bring that into the Cup this year as an educational piece. And it's exciting to see this. I mean, it's so different than all being back in the woods, just where the contest used to be.
Will you have a category for pure terpenes? Cannabis derived, unadulterated, no concentrate, no cannabinoids, no herb, just terpenes? You
know, we're not doing it at the Cannabis Country Fair, but I believe we'll do that at the Emerald Cup.
Nice. That'd be cool. That'd be very cool, you know?
We're going to expand that out. Because we wanted to make sure we didn't make one mistake with this contest, and it was a new set of you know, parameters. It was like, let's just keep it small. Let's keep this together and do this, because we went back and forth on how many other contests. People wanted us to add a bunch of other contests in. And it was like, you know what? Let's just work with this. We'll head to the Cup. We'll get it done, and we'll just expand it. But that's a really good suggestion on that one. We talked about it, and I think it should be in.
Yeah, a good idea to build your foundation, you know, a little simpler and not too overly complex, because as we know with cannabis and getting into terpenes especially, holy smokes, you could go deep. It could get complicated.
You can. It can. I mean, all of this is complicated. This contest is complicated. What this has become, this is like gone from a little show to where it's like, I can't even keep track of all the prizes and the contest and what's going on. That's why we're bringing these you know, heavyweights in here to just make sure it all runs right.
Well, I tip my hat to you, sir. It's you know, you've been doing a great job. Obviously, I hear great things about the Emerald Cup. It's one of the events that I cannot believe I haven't been to in the cannabis community. It's hopefully one day.
Oh, we'll get you out. You got an extended VIP tickets for yourself too.
That's so cool, Tim. Mark's been at this a while, so I can't visit Mark because of my cannabis convictions, and Mark can't visit me because of his. So we've both been bumped on the Canadian border. So This is a lot of why I used to do Hash Church, because it'd give me time to just sit and smoke with Mark. I know it sounds funny, but I can't, other than meeting him in Europe at a coffee shop, I don't get to spend quality time with my friend.
Or Jamaica.
I haven't gotten high with Mark in Jamaica yet, but I'm down.
Well, we'll be doing that soon. I'll tell you. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, there's just so much going on in Canada right now. I wish I could get up there too. I've got convictions, and so I can't get. I'm hoping with the unfoldment legalization, they'll open that all up now. They're pretty restrictive.
We will meet in Jamaica.
Hey, Tim, tell everybody where to get information if they're interested in going to your event. Where is it going to be held? What are the dates? How do they find out more information?
Well, the dates are July 21st, 22nd, 23rd of this year. It's going to be at the historic Black Oak Ranch in Mendocino County. It's 10 miles north of Laytonville, right on the highway there. You can get the information at cannabiscountryfair.com. You can get tickets at Eventbrite. We're going to have tickets in the stores throughout, Northern California over the next couple of days. And it's going to be a beautiful 80-acre ranch with a river going through it that people are going to be camping on. And it's going to be a wonderful outdoor camping event for people. It cools down at night, so the weather's not hot. We have an amazing lineup. I mean, these guys at Red Light, I didn't know half these bands. I go out and try to book our acts, and then they'll tell us yes or no, but we'll get one-offs. Red Light goes out, and every available comes to them. So we got an act that is blowing up. They're #1 in the country on alternative rock, called Portugal the Man, who I didn't even know who that was. And he's amazing. And then, of course, we got Thievery Corporation, which just did a new record. They were down in Jamaica putting that together. They're doing some tours. And then we got Beats Antique. But then we've got White Denim and Alan Stone, Jamestown Revival, Anders Osborne, who I didn't even know about, who I now one of my new favorites.
That guy is amazing. Phenomenal.
You know what? I was told by one of my record store people that take tickets, they said, you got to go listen to Anders. And I said, I've been so busy, I haven't had a chance to. And they said, you got to listen to this guy. And I went and listened to him, and I was like, oh, man, the guy is phenomenal. And these guys are all headliners in their own right, and they're all playing, third, fourth in the lineup. So they hit it out of the park. They spent more money than I do on the Emerald Cup for the music. And so a great lineup for that, some great speakers coming in, great topics, and really just a comfortable place to hang out with people for the weekend.
It's almost like we're turning, it's like these cannabis events are really going to sort of take over what a concert used to be. Let's go to a concert and drink a beer and watch like Roger Waters play his songs. It's like, no, now there's like speakers, there's an event, it's cannabis based, there's a little competition, it's just such a better thing to have these amazing bands play at these events, but make it still, focused on that plant that we all love.
And the county fair, I mean, that's natural. I used to always go to county fairs. It was very agriculturally orientated, both animals and plants.
Well, can we talk about a little bit? This is an organic-based fair. I read on your website you're not even, you don't even want to accept applications from nutrient companies that don't have organic lines. Could you talk a little bit more about that, Tim?
Well, we're really stepping out with that. We're not calling anybody out, but we're looking at what the state's going to demand next year in terms of testing, and we're looking at the environmental issues and the patients' issues, and we're just drawing a line and saying that we need to provide organic medicine to our patients and for our farms and for our communities, and we just can't stand down from that. So we're just now going to demand that everybody coming into the Cannabis Country Fair and the Emerald Cup, we already have all the food organic, we have all the entries organic. We've given some people leeway as far as vendors, but we're drawing a line in the sand and saying, look, if you want to be with us and you want us to represent you, then you're going to have to be organic, because that's what we're saying we are. And then when we let all these groups slip in that aren't, people come to us and they say, well, we thought they were organic because they were with you. And so we're vouching for these companies in effect.
No, yeah, I think that's fantastic. I mean, you represent to me the old school Mendocino. When I first went up there in '94 and I spent my first summer up there growing with Richard Davis, you remember Richard Davis. He had the hemp museum. Yeah, he was a hero. It was different. I mean, you guys had such a different consideration for the environment around you. You were not polluters. You were not trashing the place. You were not clear cutting to put up greenhouses. It was such a different vibe. I mean, the guys growing at the normal meetings, and the activism I did were the same people I saw at the Earth First stuff that were standing up and trying to stop the loggers. And then a whole new generation of people seemed to come in after Proposition 215 passed. And it took a very different vibe. And it broke my heart in a lot of, and you know, I'm not religious, but going up to those trees, it's like a spiritual experience, you know, Northern California. And I'm just really happy that you have this voice of reason and that you're bringing back this consciousness of, hey, we have to be stewards of the land. We've got to take care of each other. I love the community element of this so much, Tim. And I hope people really hear that and get that and understand that that's been a big part of the Emerald Cup for a very long time.
Well, thank you very much, Todd. That's it is true, and you know, it's not just the cannabis people; it's across the country. We've taken all the topsoil off all the land. We've toxified it so much that boys, you know, you go out in the San Joaquin Valley and they're growing six-legged frogs and all kinds of stuff. And it's like we need to be the leaders, and we need to take that responsibility and raise that bar and show the rest of this country how to do it. Because they're not doing it. I mean, not in the vineyard industries and the traditional agriculture industries. They're pretty much toxifying the land and themselves and us. And it's got to stop. And it's, you know, it's really a great place for us to be able to lead that way and show everybody how to do that. And that's what the state is asking us to do. And that's what we can do. And, you know, those people coming back up here all those years ago, Todd, they were coming back up here not to make money, but to live a good life with their families, to live organic lives. And it was about growing some cannabis so they could pay their bills, because nobody was getting rich. I mean, back then, if you could bring 100 pounds out, you were a huge guy. I mean, anybody could, that was almost unfathomable, because you were growing under the trees and the shade with these little quarter-ounce or quarter-pound plants, like a huge plant. Now it's like people are like, unless you're a 10-box guy and growing 1,000 pounds. A guy showed up at my house the other day, or Area 101, and he came in and he said, I got 4 acres in Humboldt. I'm getting 4 more. Do you think if I have 8 acres, I can compete? And I said, you know what? If every farmer needs 8 acres, we're done. We're doomed. I mean, there's just no way to support that. There's no way to get enough people to smoke that. And so we're going to all have to be reasonable going into this. It's going to be a big thing, because one of the things I've found in the last month we're finding up here is we have a crisis going on, and I want to start a whole, like almost a theater piece on what happened. How did this happen? Because we're bringing Prop 64 in. We're supposed to be reasonable. Everybody's supposed to be down at an acre or less. We're going to be all playing fair. Mendocino's playing fair. We've got everybody at the top level doing a quarter acre. That's what we've got, 10,000 square feet. And I've got neighbors complaining because we're too big. And yet you've got Steve D'Angelo down there with 27.5 acres. They're predicting 25 million pounds being grown from Santa Cruz to San Luis Obispo this year. I mean, it's 8 times what the Triangle brought out. You talk to Eddie and the guys in Sacramento, they're going to come online with 100 million pounds. They're building the greenhouses as fast as they can right now. It won't impact us this year. But before Prop 64 came in, you got people in Humboldt growing 4 to 8 acres. You got people all over the state that have gone around it. And how did our senators and our leaders and everybody allow this nightmare to happen before it even became legal?
But can I ask you this, Tim? Don't you think, in all factuality, I mean, there's been a surge of growers, surge of people buying land because it's got huge profitability. You take the profitability out and you turn this into tomato farming, there's going to be a whole lot less enthusiasm around that tomato farming because there's not the profits there. And if cannabis goes down to the price of anywhere near organic tomatoes, under $10 a pound, all these guys are fucking out the door. I mean, you're going to see a nice, quiet Northern California again, because you're going to lose a lot of the people that came up there with the intent of, can I compete?
Yeah, and not to say that people aren't going to get a decent dollar for their cannabis in the future, a craft style like that'll always exist. But this $3,000 a pound thing that's based on people going to prison for years of their life is just no longer the reality that we want to be a part of.
Todd, I do disagree with $10 a pound, though. And the reason is because cannabis is usually sold dry by the pound. And if you sold dried, organically grown tomatoes that were dried, they wouldn't be $10 a pound. They'd be more, because you have to dry them and go through the hassle to do so.
That makes sense.
fantastic example. So I'll look up my dry organic tomato pound. But you know what? I don't think it'll go down to 10, but you get that there's going to be a situation where your neighbors are looking at the cost of production, and they're going to be realistic about what it costs to produce that pound of cannabis. They're going to double their price because they have investors that want to see a return. This is going to turn into a regular business. And I think when that happens, everything's going to change.
No, that's the trouble. Is that it already happened? It's like what we found out in the research is that I went to sleep. I had some serious illnesses over the winter, and I woke up doing this Cannabis Country Fair thinking we were going to have like a total celebration. And it's not a wake, but it's almost like a total shock and awe thing that's gone on, because what we found is that last year's outdoor right now, because of the millions of pounds of depots coming in, it's almost not saleable. You're watching people that have, sour D's and cookies and stuff that they'd be getting 12 to 14. They're not getting 1,000. Now they're looking at boxes and maybe they got to go, I've been told 7 or 8. And it's because there's so much depot coming in that they don't even want last year's anymore. There's not even a market for it. Even back east, people don't want it. And so you've got this whole thing where now you're going to have these millions and millions of pounds of depots coming in from all over the California farmland, and it's going to keep the prices down. And then you're going to have the long season come in, and I've got people predicting that you're going to see long season crops in Humboldt and Mendocino going for $600 to $700 by Halloween, and probably $500 on the front by Thanksgiving.
To be honest,
I think they're being generous, to be honest with you, Tim, from what I've seen.
Really, the truth of it is, let's be frank here. You can grow a Christmas tree farm and you sell those Christmas trees for less than $100. Some of them take 5 years to grow. What do you think you could do with cannabis, which is an annual crop? I mean, of course you could sell it for $100 a plant. Each one, when you dry, you'll get more than a kilo. It's just simple economics. Of course you can.
You know, Tim, in the 90s, they were growing so much down in Switzerland that the way they did harvests were because they couldn't bring in the labor to harvest everything in the field. So they had picnic tables set up, and people could come to the fields and literally buy a plant, go cut it down, process what they wanted, leave the pile with, take what they wanted and split. That's going to be, I believe, the future, because when you get into the labor of taking it down, trimming it, curing it, and then packaging it, you've tacked on a whole lot of cost.
True.
Yeah, you know what? There's the Gen Canna people that they developed Charlotte's Web, and then they had a disagreement with the guys that pushed it out, so they formed a Gen Canna and went to Kentucky and worked with Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul to legalize hemp to sell worldwide. They grew 1 million pounds last year at $20 a pound with organic farming techniques with the tobacco farmers. And they're doing crystal CBD. They'd like me to bring it into my products out here, and I'm trying to figure out how I would be viewed by the people out here if I started using crystallized CBD from Kentucky, even though they're California Humboldt Triangle people that grew it all. So I'm like, oh my, what does this mean? And now they're coming to California to do, THC-based cannabis, and they're talking, $50 a pound. Well,
yeah.
You're right. Traditional agriculture, when you get in there, I'm looking at it like, for all the people that spent 40 years in the Triangle developing this, living this, fighting it, going to jail, and trying to put it together, I would have liked to have seen them get an extra year or two as the transition took place. And what we're seeing is it came in so quick that it's already here and done. And you're going to, like you said, Todd, you're going to see it. It might even go below that this year. And on the one side, for the patients and for the amount of products we're going to get, and for the pricing, it's going to be an incredible thing across this country. California is going to become a $45 billion industry. So it's going to be remarkable that all the products and the stuff that's going to come in here. But it's going to be a very difficult transition for the Emerald Triangle folks and for the people up in the Sierras and stuff that didn't get their brands or old school, didn't get their permits, didn't do it that way. They thought they'd just stay with it for the next few years, and they're going to find that it's coming at them faster than they ever thought.
If you think about it, what other agricultural products are grown up in the Emerald Triangle?
Very little. Pears were a big part of Ukiah. They're out, and then you got vineyards.
Truffles.
Lumber.
I'm just trying to point out it's not a true agricultural center the way many places in California are.
No, I think that the price reduction is going to weed out Northern California of all the wannabe cannabis entrepreneurs and leaf people like that were there because they loved the place, because they cared about the place, because it felt like home, and they weren't there to make money. And I mean, and I feel, Tim, totally for a lot of the people. There's a lot of 20-somethings that were screaming at me because I was supporting 64, and I don't really have a ton of pity for them. They were 8, 9, 10 years old when we passed 215 20 years ago. They don't understand what it was like to get raided, to get locked up, to go through hell, and they don't get the fight that we fought for so long. And this hasn't been overnight. This has been fucking decades of us losing. Getting our asses handed to us, our assets taken, our bills lined up, our lawyers sucking us dry. So this hasn't been overnight. And I do feel bad for the people that have had gardens in the last 10 years and has just watched profits go down. But this is great for the end users, because there's going to get to a point, I think, where it goes direct to consumer, where people like you can sell on your website like a winery does and say, hey, 3,000 cases of XYZ, take it or leave it. And I believe that it's going to change the face of this. And if it means that the end user is going to end up seeing huge price reductions in the cannabis that they get, I think it's great. And I feel totally bad for people that have been living off it, but I feel way better for the people that have been drinking wine or smoking cigarettes or sucking down pharmaceutical pills because they had no fucking alternative and couldn't smoke the $400 an ounce shit that you and I burn like trees. You know, we burn it like it's nothing, but a lot of people don't get to live that experience, and now maybe they will. And I think yay. I really do think yay for them, because it helped me. I hope it helps everyone else. You know, I'd love to see under $10 a pound.
I agree with you, Todd.
100%.
I'd like to see the price for a large plant that can yield 1 kilo cleaned and dried, but from a Christmas tree type setup, $100. That way people could afford to smoke hashish, you know, and that's what I like, dry sift.
I love
Well,
that.
I agree with you guys.
Christmas trees all together with cannabis trees, right? Fuck Christmas trees. They shouldn't be cutting down pine trees. Those should all be weed. You know, it should all be cannabis. The Christmas
Growing
tree.
it all.
Just think of the beautiful smell on Christmas morning in your house if you came down and there was just this big, huge, beautiful cannabis plant in full bloom.
Yeah, the beautiful thing, you don't have to.
You know what, Todd?
Decoration.
Go ahead,
I agree
Tim.
with you, Todd, completely on that. And I really do agree that I've been telling people for years that they had to wake up. And so I've spent the last 3 years getting my manufacturing in place, getting my branding, getting it all. And I told everybody it wasn't going to go on. We've all said one more year. And I don't, the only thing I am perplexed by was that we talked about with 64, and what I sold people, Todd, was that this was going to be an orderly rollout. We were going to hold back large-scale farming to like 1 acre for just a few years, and we were just going to let this slowly, you know, roll down. And it's happened so quick that it just steamrolled it, and it's basically over. And so what you're seeing up here is going to be shock and awe. And for me, it's like we're coming to the Cannabis Country Fair. It's good for us to have vending so we can show people, and we're going to talk about all this. At the end of the day, though, I fall on your side, Todd, and everybody else's. It's going to be an incredible boon for patients. They're going to see cost-effective medicine. In the 80s, when they started bringing in so much Thai, I wasn't sure what I'd do with all the Thai and Mexican because I was getting thousands of pounds, and it just got cheaper and cheaper. Well, people just started smoking more and more. It became like all of a sudden it just went everywhere. Well, that's what's going to happen with this. Cannabis is going to go from 7% to 20% to 40%. Pretty soon, half this country is going to be using cannabis in some form. So, and it's going to be cheap and wonderful.
Listen, I completely am with you. I have believed everything that I've been saying with Jack Herer for 25 years. I believe that society will be a better place if they have cannabis instead of pharmaceuticals, booze, tobacco, and everything else. I really believe in cannabis. And it's just that I believe that the price is an absolute huge hurdle for a lot of people to overcome. And it's beautiful to hear that in a sense, low quality cannabis is not desirable, because everybody's like, oh, it's a race to the bottom, it's a race to mids. Well, now mids won't be able to be sold because everybody wants good stuff. So you're going to have to learn how to grow quality at a competitive price. And it's going to have to be clean, because now we have people like Alex at SC that's going to be able to see if it's not and disqualify the people that are trying to hustle us. Because, you know, I was blown away that so many people brought tainted samples and entered them into the the Emerald Cup, because I thought, geez, who would do that? You know, like, who wants to get caught? And there's so many people did that. And I think that's this willful ignorance of what they're doing that leads them down this path of thinking they can compete with stuff that you would never smoke.
Yeah, and I also think that they went to a few other labs that weren't quite as tough as SC. They might not have tested it. They did make some mistakes. But you know, we had an educational process with the cup the last 2 years, and everybody realizing that, because nothing was getting tested. And let's face it, the thing of it is that most of the OG in these collectives is not tested. It's all indoor, and the dispensaries are turning their head the other way because they want to sell it. And next year, like Alex says, with the restrictive nature of the testing, it's going to be 9 times harder, and most of the stuff's going to fail. So the one niche for the high-end cannabis farmers is going to be growing a really quality organic product. And so if you're the best of the best, you'll have a small niche. The biggest thing, Todd, is that with all the depots coming in so quick, there's no time to store last year's crop anymore. All these people that store it and think they're going to keep it nice and tight and sell it. I'm looking at this Sour D and this cookies and stuff. It looks great, but it's not fresh light depot. And so people are looking at it like, I can buy fresh light depot, or I can buy your backpack last year's, which are great, but now they're B grade and we don't want them. And I'm like, oh my God, in 1 year, you no longer can sell last year's outdoor. Or if you do, you're going to sell it for $700.
It's interesting too, though, because people are now experiencing fresh cannabis in abundance, and they get the terpene profiles and how bright they are. And now they look at stuff that's been sitting around. They go, I still like it, but there's just not the shine there. And it's people are getting wiser to this. And this is also why when I saw that you're breaking it down into the terpenes, I thought this is really fantastic, because it's really bringing more attention to the nuances that have been attracting us for so long. And it's a great educational tool, because you can't really understand the contest unless you start learning the names of terpenes and why they're the ones in the heads of the contest. So I thought it was a fantastic educational tool. This is really why I've loved Emerald Cup for so long, because I think that bringing everyone together, you influence the community, because everyone else sees what everyone's doing, and there's an emulation that occurs. You know, everyone wants to step up their game and do better. I don't think anyone wants to bring dirty medicine to the table. So what you're doing is creating the element or the atmosphere where they can truly learn and grow and communicate with one another. And that's probably my favorite element of both of your events.
And Tim, besides doing analysis of the herb and the extract made from it to show any differences in terpene or cannabinoid contents or ratios, you could also do fresh herb and dried herb, because drying gets rid of 3/4 of the terpenes already. Good
input. I love your input. We're going to make you a consultant.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next year, because on the website, I like how you're talking about how you're doing things this year, and then you're going to apply them, what you learned, to the next year's competition. I mean, this is also something that this has been such a growing experience for everybody that's watching you do this, because it's an application of ideas and technology all coming together under one roof. Well, what was the Emerald Cup? When I say technology being the testing, and then application of ideas being organic and sustainable farming, I think it's the only way to go. And if someone's not there to teach these new young bucks, so to speak, how to do it right, where are they going to learn it?
It's not the only way to go, Todd. It's the only conscious way to go. But people buy Budweiser beer too, instead of a handcrafted small beer. So, I mean, it's not the only way to go, but it's the intelligent, conscious way.
But the fastest growing market in the spirits and alcohol markets is the high end. And it's going to be the fastest in the cannabis industry, because once people could go to a collective and get an OG and not have to be Snoop Dogg, they all wanted OG. Well, now that they can go get Skittles or a 6-star full melt concentrate, they can see the difference between fresh frozen rosin rather than low grade. And so you're going to see those prices come way down. People are going to be able to use much better medicine, because it'll be much more cost effective. And this contest, Todd, I really am proud of the fact that with the stuff that you say, we can take this around the country, open source, and teach all these people, so they don't do what we did to the Triangle environmentally They learn the right way. They learn how they're going to get a better profile with organic farming techniques and how they can get patients the right medicine. And so we can teach this whole country and this whole world. And what we need to do is just open it up to export all this so that we can keep growing enough to sell it all over the world, which is what we do. That's what we do with the rest of California agriculture. We sell it all over the world. Well, that's going to be our saving grace. If they would just get back and beyond the interstate, let us go nationwide like they're letting the GenCanada folks do with the hemp. They sold 1 million pounds worldwide. They're going to do 2 million pounds this year. You know, and so that's what we need to do, and then we can basically hold our heritage.
You know, in some ways, I think the opportunity is in front of you, and you know, with no disrespect to High Times, they've brought many of us together. I wouldn't know a lot of my friends if it wasn't for the events in Amsterdam. But I think that it's a different vibe, and the community really could use the kind of vibe that you guys are putting out, because I mean, again, no disrespect to High Times, but it's more of a party vibe and not exactly an environmentally conscious, let's, you know, save the world vibe. And you and Emerald Cup has definitely been from more of a coming from the earth perspective, and hey, let's be responsible, and hey, let's be good stewards and good neighbors. And I think that's the message more and more people need to learn as they get into this community, because if they don't, if the community doesn't take on these core values, it's just going to be a shit show. And, you know, we don't need to see more events, you know, holding their events and leaving piles of trash so the photos go viral and everybody thinks, you know, oh, look at those jerks. You know, we need people like you guys that stay until the place is perfectly clean and, you know, leave it better than you found it. And I really would love to see you go national with this, if not international with this, because, you know, from the rumors I've heard, people smoke this stuff everywhere. So the potential is pretty huge.
Well, you know what we want to do? We want to take exactly what we're doing here, these conversations, and take that across this country so that people can very quickly not have to take 10 years to learn. We can get them up to speed. And that's just a critical, important thing for us right now, because you can see this country and this world. It's not inclusive. It's not community. It's not, I mean, it used to be you grew up in a neighborhood and everybody in that neighborhood was part of your hood. It didn't matter. You were all the hood. And it was across that way with the whole world. And now look at what we become. In the cannabis world now, unfortunately, a lot of dog eat dog is starting to happen because people are starting to be worried about their brands, their own livelihoods. And instead of everybody being an outlaw where it's us against them, now it's all us against everybody because we're trying to fight for our lives. And we got to really stop that and really hold together as a team. That's why we're trying to teach people how to manufacture. We teach people how to make six-star full melt. We don't hold back on anything that we do because it's got to be open source and it's got to be a community.
Well, one thing you can see quite obviously from the analysis the last few years is that varieties that have high terpene levels are consistently in the winning circle.
Absolutely. The highest THC has never won any of our contests. People have come in several times and told me they got the highest THC and they're going to win. And I tell them all, I'll bet you $100 you don't. It's the balance of the cannabinoids and the terpenes. In our case, I thought that it would only be OGs and fuels that would win. And then all of a sudden you add the green queen or green crack, you had the lemon skunk, you had these different things come in last year, Skittles. And so for us, our judges have really moved towards those terpene profiles and that balance. And it's been nice to see. So it's very perceptive that you see that. It really is the higher terpene profiles that a lot of our judges look for.
The real truth, the real truth is that terpenes on an average used to be 1.5–2% of the dry weight total. Now they're moving up towards 5%, and a few individuals have been created which are 10%. 10% terpenes.
That's amazing.
Cannabis
and what do you think the concentrate on those terpenes would be if you did an extraction?
I don't know. I haven't done it, and I did not do this terpene work, but friends of mine did do it, and 5%. Several people I know have 5ers, but a few people even have 10ers.
Well, because it's just interesting. You get a lot of people talking about the addition of cannabis-derived terpenes, and maybe there's going to be a number where it's too high, terpenes being hydrocarbons. But maybe we are already seeing for the last, maybe decade to 2 decades that we've been smoking some fairly high percentages of terpenes in our extractions.
Well, the best way is when you have a contest like Tim's at the Emerald Cup, and the winners are consistently those that are also highest in terpenes. It's not a coincidence.
That's for sure.
I think we should go back and do some research because the testing all came in so late. I got to admit, I haven't even gone back and looked at that data, and we have all the data from all those concentrates, and we'll bring that into the Cannabis Country Fair because I think that's really, a great suggestion too, to really look at these terpene profiles and the concentrates. I know the cartridges, you're pushing 15. BAM's got stuff that came in over 14. And you got really incredible terpene levels in there, but I don't know how high they go or where the balance would be. We'll have to start looking at that. There's so much research, like Esty said, we have so much data, we almost have to hire somebody just to start mining all the data and giving us back, some information.
And I was talking about herbal terpene levels of 1 or 2%, now up to 5%, and a few individuals have been created which are 10%. The extracts, I don't even know how high those numbers would go.
Yeah. I think they'd be pretty high.
I'll let you know. I'll tell you what. I'll have that information by the Cannabis Country Fair, and we're going to put that up. I wrote it down. You got some great notes there.
That's fantastic, Tim. I can't thank you enough for coming on with us this morning. I know it's Father's Day and you got stuff to do, but I'm excited to go to your event, and I hope a lot of people attend. Again, it's cannabiscountryfair.com.
Mm-hmm. I want to thank you for producing all these amazing events that I can't come to. Maybe one day you'll come up to Canada or Jamaica and put an event on.
You guys are all welcome to come for VIP tickets if you can make it. I know you can't, but one day we'll get you there, or we'll get over there. Todd and I will make it. You guys are, like I said, all invited. Come up. You can camp backstage with us and do whatever you want. Todd, you've been a great support, a great voice of reason. I got you down in LA. I'm up here in the Triangle, and it's like we're both representing the same things. We want the same things, and we're seeing the same things happen. So I can't imagine where we'll be in 5 years. How many products, how many new industries, how many things we'll have to talk about. It'll be tough for the farmers in the transition, but overall, like you said, for the world and for all of us, it's just going to be an amazing new dawn we're coming into, and a new world. I can't imagine.
I say embrace the change. My upside of this, Tim, is I've been growing my own stuff since I was 13, and if a 13-year-old kid can grow it in his closet without his grandma learning him, finding out he's doing it for a whole year, I didn't get caught for a year. Anyone can grow their own cannabis. It may not be worth much anymore to do it, but you're also not going to go to jail. So you're not going to lose your shit. You're not going to get your doors kicked in or your dog shot. So have your gardens. I mean, to me, that's going to be a beautiful day. So I'm sorry a lot of people are going to get flushed out of the industry, but I'm really glad a lot of people are going to really get introduced to cannabis on an economical level so that they can use as much of it as they want.
And people need to realize that the worth of cannabis isn't all monetarily. There is an incredible relationship to be had when you start using this plant, when you start eating the essential oil-rich seeds and oils, when you start consuming the cannabinoids, whether oral or through vaporization or smoking. There are relationships that are created through that. And that, to me, has always been the worth of cannabis.
And people have to realize that the high prices are really an artifact of prohibition. There would be no high prices like this. I mean, traveling around the world, I bought kilos of Simsimia for $3.50 because it was barely prohibited in that area.
Yeah, look, we didn't come up in the mountains. I didn't come up here all those years ago to make a bunch of money. I came up because I refused to stop smoking cannabis. And if they were going to put me in prison, they could do it. But I was going to do what I wanted to. And that's just the way it was. And all the rest of the guys did. I can tell you right now that you don't see the gauntlet in Northern California anymore. There used to be people pulled over every day, 2 or 3, as you drove down to the Bay Area. They're gone. Those cops know they can't get a conviction, even though it's not even all the way legal yet. It's over. There are no more gauntlet runs throughout Northern California, and hallelujah. You know what? They're bringing the cannabis down safe and easy. Nobody's going to jail, like Todd said. We're all going to live in a great world, and to me, it's nothing but goodness. And so I just, like I said, the only thing is I think it happened very quickly, but in some ways, Todd, we've been talking about this for 10, 15 years. Every year it's going to be it, so we've all been given notice. So, I can go both sides.
No, and I feel for my brothers and sisters growing, and I get it. I totally understand the loss of an economic opportunity, but at the same time, it's another opportunity that's good for everybody. And, you know, hey, cannabis for all, I think, should be our new motto, to be honest.
Yeah.
And thank you for being a
$50 grams of full melt by next year.
Thank you for being a leader, at least not only with just your Emerald Cup, but also saying you can step it up a bit and doing with your country fair. So thank you for constantly raising the bar, and I look forward to a great success for you.
Thank you, guys. Hope you can join us. You all got tickets. Let me know. We'd love to have everybody up here. We'll get you guys anything we can. Todd, you know, continued thanks for everything you do. All you guys, I respect you very much. All you, thank you.
Good luck with your future ventures, Tim.
Yeah, we're all your cheerleaders, bro. We're all rooting for you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for blessing us with your presence on Hash Church. And anytime you want to come back and share what it is you're up to, of course you are welcome.
Well, you know what? You know what, I'll share you the last going away thing. I lived up here illegal. My family couldn't come up here because it was all too dangerous. Now I've got 20 different family members, nieces and nephews that have all moved up in the last 6 months. 2 of my 3 kids are here. I just picked my grandson up, just graduated from high school. He's been growing 2 plants in Georgia for the last 3 years, and now he's working on 10,000. And I got my whole family coming up because it's safe for them to come in and not worry about going to prison, and we can all be proud of it. So we're going to have a Father's Day for the first time with my whole family in probably 20 years out here, and I'm very happy that this has happened so that we can do these types of things. So I'm really I'm excited about where we're going, and I look forward to doing it with all you guys.
That's amazing, man. Enjoy your family. Have a great Father's Day, and thanks for coming out, Tim.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, Tim.
Happy Father's Day, Tim.
Much love.
How amazing is that? Hey, like that you really see the change now. Do you think Oma had a lot to do with that, Todd, having his family move up in the last 6 months? Or it's just the last 5 years.
It's been an evolution of change of culture. I mean, we were all afraid of putting our families through what I've went through. I mean, Etienne had to clean up the mess of one of the messes of my life. So, you know, I hate that burden on the people I love, and to experience it with the people that your family, your daughters, your sons, and to have them, it's people just sometimes don't understand or remember how friggin' ugly it really was for a long time. And to me, it makes me so happy to hear that now he can, without paranoia, invite the people he loves to the place that he grows and literally celebrate life instead of having to worry about that, you know, that the man was coming and they're going to kick down your still and shoot your dog and ruin your life, man. I mean,
and you're not away.
Well, not only that, he can attract now professionals to run that, you know, look, we all specialize in our own aspects of what we're very good in. And look, I know when I don't have expertise in something, I hire experts who do. And when he listed off the cadre that he has running the show, it shows how serious they're really taking and that they really want to take it to the next level. And that's what it takes. You have to have production companies. You have to have people running things properly that have done this before. I mean, it helps greatly. Look, I'm not saying that people can't do it, but it very much helps when you have all the contacts. As he said, when bands come to you as opposed to you going to bands, it's a whole different dynamic altogether.
Yep. And let me throw this out, you know, again, I never wanted to be in a disrespectful way to High Times, because if it wasn't for the cannabis cups, we would not have a lot of the cannabis consciousness we have. So props to Hager, props to High Times, props to Stang, keeping up the torch lit and running with it. And, you know, one of the things that I think is good is that High Times now has new ownership. They have very professional leadership that's going to come in and be able to execute the cannabis cup in ways that they've never been able to in the past. So we're going to see a whole new face on this. And if they're listening, I just say this: I hope that they take on an environmental and a bend of social responsibility and high ethic and morality to what they're trying to do, because we need to set a good example. And if they don't, who will? You know, so.
Well, and you'll also see what Tim does ripple into other events. You know, we all know that there's, how many events do you guys have up in there in Canada, John and Bubble Man? You guys have, you know, competitions as well. But here in the United States, right? And we have them so many here in the United States, and so they're spread all over the world. But they're looking to what standards are, and so this gives us another standard set to compare to say, hey, this competition's doing this. Not only is it environmentally sound, but they're also doing it by terpenes. it's accelerating the conversation, so people, laymen, are forced to get terpenes. What are terpenes? It's going to elevate the entire conversation to a point of understanding that I think that the fringe are well aware of, because I'd consider us the fringe because we're the less than 10% of 10%. But it brings an opening to the rest of the community, so that people go, oh, wait. And then all these magazines, because there's like 20 to 40 different magazines here in the United States now, that will cover that information and make people aware that, oh, this is how things are done at this competition. This is how it's done there. And it's going to cause people like High Times to go, hey, maybe this we should. It's going to force them economically or through the competition and realizing how natural people go. I've been to the High Times event up north, and I've been to the Emerald Cup, and there is no competition in size that Emerald Cup draws in comparison to High Times. Again, no offense to High Times. I got married at the High Times Cannabis Cup. Todd was my best man there. I met Bubble Man there. I met Sam the Skunk Man there. So it's without a doubt they have their place in history. But at the same time, it's taking it and elevating it. And it's great to see that this freedom with AMA, this freedoms that are given now with 64 that can push the, allows this type of discussion, not only that, competition, not only that labs are calibrated and up to this point that we can actually having this conversation right now, as opposed to hoping that one day. So we still have a ways to go with testing, but at the same time, it shows us how far that we've come. And it very much excites me to stand on this precipice and to look over the horizon to see what's coming.
No, it's great. I think a lot of good things are happening. And, props to Steve Hager. When the Cannabis Cup first started, he was bringing in the whole environmental hemp information into cannabis and trying to expand the consciousness of the culture and talk about a lot more than just, who had the best weed. He was trying to bring in spirituality. He was trying to bring environmentalism. He was the guy that put, Jack Herr's book almost in every other issue of High Times for the longest time.
He also gave free booth space to nonprofit groups that were pro hemp or pro environment, and so yeah, he did. Even though he thinks I'm a CIA agent, I still give him props for what he deserves.
Oh, dude, I got an email. I got a message.
That's so huge of you, bro. That's so huge of you. I think that he's gone a little off the wagon these days with some of the accusations he's made. And for you to say that is great. The things that he throw against you, I think, are rudely wrong on every level. So it's awesome for you to say that, Sam.
Well,
I admire you a little more all the time, sir.
That rumor is still going on. And I got hit yesterday from some Instagram telling that same bullshit story. Yeah, Sam's a CIA agent. Yeah, he ratted everyone. It's just such bullshit that I get quite offended when I get where I come from. It's really simple. If you want to say that someone has ratted someone out, you produce a document. And that is the only way. If you don't have that document, you shut the fuck up and sit down. And that's just where I come from. It's a very, 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 very dangerous accusation to make where I come from. And you better have the paper to back it up. So
anywhere.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yes.
Super bullshit. Anyway, that's my rant. Let's puff a bowl. Just defending my mentor,
Hey, man, let's puff one for Franco. ATN shirt's making me want to cry. So.
That I will do.
We gonna have a poem. Nice try.
Hey, welcome D420K and Johnny B and Mark Scaldone. Fuck, we got talking there. I didn't even welcome you guys to the room. My apologies.
But listening to what you had to say
Today's
was awesome.
not Mother Lover Day, Father Lover Day.
Father lovers, yes. To all you dads out there, this bong rip's for you.
Daddy-o. Right. Each of us had a dad.
Hey, what's everybody puffing on? I'm puffing on this nice Congo haze because I love the haze. Thank you, Empress S-Trax.
I'm doing the first bounce of the Medi Kush off the screen. It just melts like water. Tasty, tasty.
Melts like water, hey?
Fucking right, Johnny.
Congo haze sounds good.
And it tastes good too, Sam. I'm not gonna lie. It's nice.
I'll hit this Justin Trudeau Kush bubble hash. Pardon me for my dirty camping nails. There we go. Boom. A little bit of grease there. Thank you,
I just
Phil.
got the 4-year reminder from our man camp yesterday, and sitting in the Argo, and I was just like, I hope you had an epic time up there, Mark.
They were asking, where's Johnny B? Where's the Argo? We had an awesome time. I did my wake and bake. For some reason, I had a Wi-Fi or a signal for my phone that I could get onto. Not Wi-Fi, but my actual.
Minutes.
And I managed to pull it off each day. So it was kind of hilarious. Good times, lots of dirt bike riding, many hours of dirt bike riding. I fell off my dirt bike. A couple of really good times. Thank God I wear full gear from like head to toe. But man, I'll tell you.
You were cold up there. Was it cold? Were you up
Well,
high?
sleeping in the tent was a bit cold. We were at 3,200 feet, so you could see your breath. It was probably 1 or 2 degrees above zero. I think that's about 30 degrees Fahrenheit for the Americans.
Did you bring the portable? Were you hitting like dabs?
I was hitting this the whole time. I just brought this. It was fun. I love dabbing.
32 is freezing, so 30 would be below freezing.
Oh, okay. So then it would be like 35, 38 maybe?
I don't know.
Under 40 degrees.
You should have been making some hash up there.
It was only a couple degrees Celsius above zero, so.
You got a dry sift up there next time.
So dabbers, since Bubble Man and Johnny and others here actually dab, what is your preferred cotton-tipped user? There's now different manufacturers. Of course, Q-Tips is, of course, the one that's out there, but there's now different manufacturers or people that are promoting these different types. So I was just wondering what's your favorite type.
As long
Mine
as they're
is
pure cotton and wood or something instead of any plastic. Yuck.
Yep, that's definitely on it. But at the same time, I will say this. I also used I like the big wood ones with the pointy tips because I was really thinking you had to scrape. But as I learned to do the low temp, I learned that at the end of my rip, it's just a puddle. I can just pick it up with any kind of fucking Q-tip. And especially because I use DC glass cleaner, I just put a tiny bit on the Q-tip and it just swoops right up. I don't care what kind I use. I think the more important thing for me is the DC glass cleaner. I've taken pieces of toilet paper and
DC glass cleaner if they can micro encapsulate it and have it stuck on the thing so it doesn't evaporate.
I've taken I forgot my train of thought. I had something, but it's all good. I'm gonna hit a rip.
That's a great idea, and somebody's going to come up with that. There's got to be something where they'll actually have, where it stays on the actual tip, so you can actually just swab it. That'll probably take some time.
To me, the DC glass cleaner is way more important than any Q-tip because I can make a Q-tip out of anything to clean the DC glass cleaner up. If I can just pour some into my quartz, it's gonna pick everything up and boil it right out of the bowl. So
yeah,
it doesn't. Sounds impressive.
I've used it. It is impressive when I've actually applied it to my quartz. It's
what is it?
It's dumbfounding how fast it actually causes everything to.
Does it clean the ceramic?
All right, Mark Chaldone. It is non-chlorinated water, Karanja oil, processed coconut extract, processed kelp extract, and processed extract of sugarcane. It's mostly water. But the way the oil kind of soaps up a little bit, they've made videos of these greasy, like fully reclaimed, like burnt black glass bowls, putting it inside of this liquid boiling, and it just literally melts the resin off and dechazonates. I would have called it the dechaz.
The dechazinator. Nice.
Yeah, the dechaz.
I can fix all of my bowls. Is that what you're saying? Like I gotta get.
Well, no. Let me think. Listen, you've chazed those out so bad. This is the difference. I'm not talking about the gray, destroyed, smoky, cloudy bowl. I'm talking if you get a little black on your bowl, and you can be smart enough to not burn it with your torch, because that's what we all want to do. It's just like, let's just burn it off. I don't want to see it anymore. Once you've done that, you're fucking the quartz pretty good. From my perspective, it's just my opinion. I'm not an expert or anything, but
yeah,
we become experts on how to clean quartz bowls because I got
the reason why is because the mineral components are left behind, right? And so that's like a salt layer that sort of precipitates that. So
it does not come off.
Right, and once it starts building up, right, it fuses and makes like a mixed oxide with the glass itself. So it sort of fuses with it. So it becomes like, if you start scraping it, you're actually scraping the glass.
Yeah.
But so let me just understand. I think we've talked about this cleaner once before, right, Mark? So you put this on, but you immediately wipe it up, right? Like it doesn't leave a residue behind.
Here's the most important thing for me, okay? I have a heightened sense of smell and taste, kind of to the degree of it being more of a bummer than a good thing, because trust me, there are plenty of shitty tasting things and tons of bad smelling things. Like I'm that guy, if I'm talking to someone and they have bad breath, I can't be like 3 to 4 feet within them, or I'm just like, dude, please go fucking floss and brush your teeth. I'm gonna throw up. So it's kind of like, if there's anything weird in anything, I taste it. This has never left a taste in my bowl. It evaporates out completely like water. It doesn't leave any residue at all. And I just wipe it up with Q-tips till it's dry. And then generally, the next time I go to smoke, I heat my quartz up. So I don't even see smoke come off the quartz when I'm heating it up, unless I've left resin in there and been a little bit inefficient in my cleaning.
But you said it acts like a soap, right? It's got like a soapy kind of action to it. Did you say?
Well, that Karanja oil almost, if I were to do this, you see that?
It makes an emulsion, right? Yeah.
It emulsifies. Not a huge percentage, but there, like I bet you the Karanja oil content is very low, like probably under 10%.
Sure, it's mostly water, right?
Mostly water. You can see the color even is very just off a little bit, but
hey, Marcus, does anyone else use Grunge Off?
I use Grunge Off, and in fact, it's reminiscent of Grunge Off. And before I saw Grunge Off, I'll never forget this. I was in my friend's coffee shop in Amsterdam, the Amnesia coffee shop. And I'm sitting there with the bud tender, and he's like, I've got this new bong cleaner. And I'm like, bong? Like, what kind of bong cleaner? He's like, it's not from chemicals, he's talking about how it was from an enzyme or something from a soybean, like something they extracted from a soybean to produce this very organic, you could drink it, it wouldn't get you sick, it tasted shitty, but you could clean your bong. And it's basically, the next time I saw it, and how I knew it was very much the same thing, was because when I touched it, it was almost impossible to get off your hands. Like you had to wash your hands for fucking 5 minutes to get this shit to come off your hands. And Grunge Off was different, but identical. Richard took it and created a different product. He marketed it and bottled it. And I supported Grunge Off for years. I still do. It's a great product. I just don't really, my glass, I clean so often with a little bit of, hot water. You give it a shake and dump it out at the end of the night. Maybe a tiny little shot of ISO in there just because it's quick and fast. But my biggest deal nowadays is just cleaning my quartz. It would be interesting to see if Grunge Off worked to clean quartz in a similar way.
So Mark, can I ask a question? Like if you have like a dirty rig, like if you have a rig and you've poured all your rig water out, so now you're ready to put the cleaner in, and there's like globules of reclaim that are in there. Mm-hmm. Will this stuff just act to dissolve all those globules? Like a little shaking up.
Can I make a point? And Mark showed it to me. It was he boiled water and poured it in his bong in Barcelona.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
All the thick stuff, and then used a little bit of ISO and cleaned it, and it came out great. And ever since he did that, I have a hot water tap at my house that's separate from my faucet. So I used the really hot water, rinse it out, and get all what you're speaking of out of there. Because as soon as the heat hits it, it loosens up and agitates. And then I soak it with Grunge Off, and the stuff comes out. I mean, I soaked this yesterday.
You pour that down your drain, Todd?
Perfect.
Do you pour your liquid reclaim down a drain?
I wouldn't, because it could gack up your pipes after a while. I mean, it depends on how often you're doing it.
As soon as it finds a cold surface along the inside of your pipes, it's going to solidify like a arterial plaque inside an atherosclerosis patient. So yeah, absolutely, you should not pour reclaim down the sink.
Hey Sam.
Yes.
Would you mind enlightening these fellows to a little story?
Have I broken more glass pipes than any other human being on the planet Earth who didn't mean to. But I've also clogged more pipes, cleaning my bongs.
Dude, you're the reason I don't pour Reclaim down my sink. Like,
Well,
did you not
do it for several years or even 5 or 10 years? But if you live in the same place, you don't want to do it.
Didn't you have to remove the pipe and it was just like full of Reclaim?
Yes.
Like a fucking kilo?
I don't know how much it was, but the guy stuck one of those, what are they called? Like snakes, you know, those pipe snakes.
Yeah.
And he says, "What the hell is this?" And it was all black crap, but it wasn't liquid anymore. It had dried and hardened out, and it was like crystally.
Oh my God, dude. You're
so all right, I can actually speak to this because I've actually I don't boil my glass. I have done actually cold soaks where I've just poured grunge off directly into old pipes. In fact, I did this with a pipe that I had from the 90s, an old pipe that I had from a glass blower that just had resin. I just soaked it and then I'd pour it back into a separate container and then rinse it out. But when I'd take that the grunge off, if you put it through a coffee filter, it'll actually go back into its container and you can reuse it.
Oh yeah.
I've reused the same bottle of grunge off for months. So I actually just went and bought a couple of new ones, and I'll probably have them for 6 months.
Dude,
Right.
I have mine from years.
Right, and I'm just making people aware if you actually filter your stuff, you can reuse this for years because it's a great cleaner. You can soak cold because again, I'm fearful of that hot water in glass, just myself, because I've seen and people do stupid things. And
Hey, Marcus, what's the
but
pH
the new glass cleaner as well that you're talking about? I have that, and I have to say I'm absolutely amazed. And somebody said over here in the chat that, sponsored by. I'm like, no, we're not sponsored by. I actually buy everything that I have, and that stuff's not cheap, but it's well worth it. And that's one reason why you can recycle it and reuse it, is because it is expensive. So, just get some coffee filters and an actual little spigot there to go in, and you're good to go.
Well, this stuff is super cheap. It's like $8 a bottle if you buy it by the case, or $20 on Amazon or something. And it's not reusable. I don't own shares in the company. I'm not paid by the company, but I do give bottles of it away.
Marcus, if you poured a bottle of that down my clogged pipe, do you think it would have worked?
I think that if we poured boiling water down your pipe for quite a while and then poured it down, I think it would have been quite effective, yeah. But it would have come out the top of your sink.
Yeah, well, that is how the pipes got clogged, was with
Dr. Bronner's, yeah, right.
Dr. Bronner's and boiling water.
Marcus, what is the pH of that stuff?
I'm not sure that it says the pH on here, but I could ask Mick.
I'm gonna go throw it in a pH meter and
Pre-diluted.
Tell me what the pH of that is. I'm really curious.
Leave soaking until glass is clean. Yeah, so I haven't even cleaned glass with it. I just use it on my bangers. But I'll tell you, I don't want to hit my torch, my banger with a torch if I don't have the DC glass cleaner. If I don't have Q-tips, it's okay. I can get something straight, break off a little piece of paper or toilet paper or paper towel and make a ball, and that's like my Q-tip. That's unimportant. Important is that I have this little bit of liquid to clean the bowl nicely. Important to me anyway.
I wonder if that's another use as a degreaser.
I'm thinking that it would.
Like
grease is grease, right?
Well, just to clean out pipes, and it's a real big thing in the winter time when pipes start getting cold and oil becomes difficult to flow. And yeah, I mean, anything that can be used to degrease could have all kinds of industrial applications.
Would you like me to send you a bottle, Mark?
Can you?
Of course. Yeah, just send me an email with your where you want it sent. bcbubbleman@icloud.com.
I always used a small amount of ethanol, and it absolutely gets things sparkling clean.
Sure. I just love the fact that this is non-toxic. It's just simple. It's like I put it in little, I usually have it in these little vials. I'll fill up like 10 of these and just roll with them. I give them to people too because it's a nice little thing. You get maybe like 10 or 15 cleans out of it, and it does the job. It does the job. I can hear my little guy in the other room getting all excited. I was away camping for quite a few days, so we're going to have a nice day today for Father's Day. Happy Father's Day.
What are you doing for Dad's Day, dads? I see three dads here.
Yeah, dads. Lots of dads.
So what you doing?
I honestly can say I did absolutely nothing for Father's Day that was different than any other day.
Oh shit, I've rented a submarine and my family and I are going to be checking out the bottom of the ocean near the Howe Sound. No, I'm joking. I like Todd's head.
That sounded legit.
He's like, is this motherfucker telling the truth?
Todd was wishing he had children.
No, but submarine sounds really cool. I wouldn't mind Paul Allen's, recovery vessels with his whole yacht thing. That seems like a lot of fun. But I'll leave the kids to Mark. Thanks.
Well, one of the guys I camp with, he builds sonars for submarines. It's probably why it was on my mind and why I made the joke. But this summer, for 2 months, he's going off to New Brunswick, and there's this area of the Atlantic Ocean where, like, from the 13th, 14th century or whatever on, there's been thousands of boats sink in this area. It's just brutal. So he's going on this submarine to go recover a particular vessel from like the 14th century.
How deep is the sub go that he'll be?
Dude, as deep as they go. Like he did sonar for the British Navy, and he's been on military subs with the US. Like this guy is, he's a serious sonar genius guy. So he's, yet he gets sick on submarines. Can you imagine?
I get seasick quite easily.
But imagine your job was to build sonar systems and test. He has to go down in the subs to test it. It's like, Jesus.
Okay, so you wanted to know the pH of that solution. So I was just kind of curious myself too. So I ran up to the garage, grabbed the pH meter. It's sitting at like 6.1. Let's find out.
Doesn't surprise me. It's mostly water.
Ooh, it's high.
Is it?
I'm hitting 10.3, 10.4. So it's very much really, really high.
It's alkaline.
pH.
Yeah, that's why it's emulsifying the oil.
So anyway, just question, right? And it's something I can do right quick for you guys. So I was just like, I'm curious too.
Yeah,
10.6, 10.7. So it's a really, really high pH, guys.
Yeah, that's why it immediately emulsifies the oil. That's why you watch it; it just bubbles right off. It's
a little bit of Hash Church.
Chemistry works.
It's like a magic trick. It's like watching.
Yeah, I want to be a chemist when I grow up.
Dude, you should, man. You know a lot about chemistry, actually. It always kind of surprises me. I'm like, this motherfucker should get a degree. Oh, wait.
Yeah, someday I'll do something. I want to be the king of mainstream cannabis when I grow up.
Oh, dude, the king of chemistry. You could be the king of chemistry. Aryan's already the king of cannabis, so you can't be that. But
oh, I thought they just crowned Pinsky. Pinsky got crowned.
Hey, time out.
I want to be able to do chemistry by just thinking about it. So you don't have to touch it. You just think about it and it does it.
Did we even have our Franco rip? It seemed like that kind of dissipated. Did we all get together and say, let's have a rip for Franco, i.e. we all hit it at the same time? We got our bongs together. We got our dabber.
I remember doing this several times, but let's do it again.
Hey, I think we should do it at least every month. A little 1 minute timer for Franco.
All right.
I'm going to go with the joint.
Ready?
Here we go.
Whatever you got, everybody in the chat, everybody out there.
Why don't we let Darren lead us into this one?
Oh, Darren.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Bong rip.
Everybody.
Every lover.
To all you mother-loving, father-loving people out there,
Happy Father's Day.
All right, that was appropriate. R.I.P. Franco.
Well, I think he lived his life the way he wanted to, and how else? That is what to be able to live your dreams and manifest them, that is the ultimate thing to me, to be honest.
Did you know him personally, Sam?
What is that?
Did you know him?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell us some stories about him, please.
Well, you know, I don't really know him in depth, but I met him numerous times, and we talked about many issues, and I liked him. Whereas his partner, I don't want to say anything if I can't say something good about something, so I won't talk about.
What kind of strains did you guys?
You know, Darren, everybody loved Franco. Franco's been involved in the European cannabis scene going back to the 90s, and
it's that he obviously loved cannabis.
Yeah,
we talked to him about indica. He loved his indica. I remember deep conversations with Franco every time I saw him at the TY Cup or when I was in Amsterdam. And whenever I saw him, I got to see Franco always at the Cups or the events once here in Vancouver. And boy, he just loved to talk about the plant and the growing. And he was just so in depth with it and the way he passionate and talked about it. I love talking with Franco, and he's definitely an inspiration. And I know he definitely loved his indica. I remember he talked about that.
I definitely have seen him, bumped into him in like half a dozen countries at least, from like all over Europe, even in Jamaica. One of the last times I saw him was with Tony, and they were just standing on the side of the road at a jerk chicken shack at like 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and we kind of pulled over because my soup guy was right next door across the street. But I always go to the vegetarian soup guy, and we look across the street, and there's like Arian and Dusty and Franco. Pretty funny to, you know, the love of cannabis brings the same people to the same places. You know, you can be in the middle of nowhere in the north of India. You can be like in a ganja field.
Small world.
It's a small world.
It's a small world getting smaller. But when Franco, if you engaged Franco with a conversation regarding cannabis, a serious conversation regarding cannabis, you were immediately a brother. You were immediately a sister. He just engaged you with just a love and an appreciation, and his knowledge, institutional knowledge of cannabis and phenotypes, and just smelling it. I would watch him smell a cannabis and look at it, and in the way that I had learned to, but his passion was so infectious, and his love for cannabis was just undeniably, it came through in every sentence that he spoke, and he was very direct about what he expected and wanted in his cannabis. But his love and appreciation overall for every person who engaged with him was humbling and beautiful to watch, because his knowledge was just, very few people I know have that type of knowledge in them.
Thank you.
Did we see Chimera come in here at one point in time?
Yeah, he's there.
Nice. What's going on?
I'm here. What's up, guys?
How's it going, dude?
Not bad. How you doing?
Dude, I'm missing that pine and lime.
Yeah, the lime and pine.
The lime and pine. Dude, Chimera brought this nugget over here. I love, you know what? I really, what you did, and you've talked about it, it sort of showed me a little bit of the future. And you came over here and you were like, you had your little bag of herb. It was like a quarter pound or something. You're like, oh, I didn't have any concentrates, so I thought I'd bring some herb we could squish.
Well, I did have concentrates. They were just not consumable by you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So no
extracted. So I didn't want to wave them in your face.
Right. No problem. Well, that's cool. But anyway, the bud had this beautiful smell. Like, it was very unique. There was a sweet skunk-esque, whatever that is. I would have thought that was like terpenoline. What do you think that is, Chimera?
It's probably the pinene in a combination with the limonene also.
Wow, yeah, just the combination of the two make this most unique. And wow, was the high ever unique too. We made some really nice rosin. I wished I had photographed it better, because we would have been able to throw up a picture.
Well, but, I like the name. Instead of lime pie, it's pie lime.
Well, it was like he had it written like lime and pine, or pine and lime on the bag, as in the two dominant terpenes, as in he didn't even know the name of the cultivar. I was like, that's the shit right there. I like that.
Yeah, the names aren't important, right? It's the chemical profile that's important.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to rename things based on that, because I think it gives the most information, right?
What do you think about Tim's new categories for his contest?
I've already copyrighted all of the terpene names. It's too late.
Too late. What do you think of the new contest broken down by 5 different cannabinoids, 5 different terpenes?
I haven't seen it, actually.
I put a little something in the chat. The link's in our chat right there. You can click on it.
No, I didn't come. I wasn't in then, so I don't see that.
Here.
Oh, really?
It will be the future, obviously.
Yeah, it'll be right up your alley for sure, Chimera.
Cool. So are Alex and Tim coming in?
You're late. Tim was here, came here doing dad stuff. And Alex, I don't know what happened to Alex.
He tends to sleep in. I'm guessing he had a really good night last night. Had some good fun.
So they've actually the cup down by then.
Oh, you cut out there for a second.
Your voice is breaking up.
Go again, Chimera?
That's great. That's great. Well, I mean, I've been telling these guys they need to do this since, we started doing the terpene classes. Because Judge Wine, it's the same thing, right? Like,
yeah, the closest similarity is to wine or beer to a lesser degree.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So it's classified by the dominant terpene.
And it's for THC varieties rather than type 2 or type 3.
And they're going to test both the concentrate and the plant.
That's the myth and the rumor, yes.
That'd be cool.
I think it's going to be a fantastic. I like that they're changing things. I think it's a fantastic way to change things based on science and not speculation. And I've always thought that the classes were stupid, especially when mostly everything is hybrids and there's no real true hazes in the contest anyway that I would even almost remotely want to mistakenly call sativa. So it's always been this whack mix of hybrids that they try to identify as sativa, indica, and other, and I've always thought it was dumb. So this at least is based on something accurate, like a profile, a known terpene profile, and then it kind of I think varieties that are similar to each other a better chance of competing with one another.
Yeah, in a way, but I mean, when you look at all the terpene classes, there's more to it than just the dominant terpene, for example. So, yeah. I mean, this is a good start, and I don't, I'm not trying to poo-poo their new method, but it's not. Like, for example, in pinene, like you can have, there's multiple different terpene classes in the pinene superclass, right?
Right. It's taking one instrument out of an entire orchestra and trying to figure out what piece the orchestra's playing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like maybe that is the loudest note, but
it's like kind of Pandora with music, because that's what they did, a little genome type to music, and it's like who's the loudest horn, and in a way. But it's a lot better than, the made-up names that the growers were calling it anyway.
And even though it's too simple, it's a start.
It is a start. No, it is a start, and it's putting us on the right path.
Oh yeah, and people have to learn about terpenes now.
It's like I'm saying that. It's like if you got a cookies and an OG, like cookies and OG are relatively close. I would say that they're they're in the same type, right? But typically OG is, especially if it's grown well, it's like limonene dominant. It's not usually caryophyllene dominant, but cookies, for example, is caryophyllene dominant, right? So it's like those are two plants that smell kind of similar, but they're going to end up in different classes here.
Well, it's
and an OG is a hell of a lot closer to cookies than, for example, say Berry White, right? So it kind of does chop them up in a way that's like.
Yeah. We've got to understand the individual notes before we can understand the sweets. When there's a complex combination of notes, that may be everybody's favorite in the end. But we have to start someplace.
Yeah.
No, again, to make the music analogy, there's classic music, there's bluegrass music, there's jazz music. These are all different classes that all get awarded Grammys, right? There's Grammys awarded in all of those categories. So I think the categorization that Ryan is referring to, something based on how it actually tastes, maybe there could be more broader categories on citrus and how the terpene profile expresses the citrus flavor. Could be a limonene dominance, or it could be a citral dominance. So there could be all kinds of different other notes that are right underneath the main note and the predominant terpene there to really give the overall flavor and essence. So why don't we just base it on, you know, the human palate itself?
Yeah, okay. When you do like the terpene suite, so imagine you have like, you know, it's like saying, okay, this is a 3-piece band with like a keyboard, a drum, and a bass player, right? And so you'd compare all those different types of 3-piece bands that are keyboard, bass, and a drummer and a percussionist, right? And that's going to have a different sound than a guy on a guitar, you know, like a single guy on a guitar, or like a guitar and a bass and a drummer, right? Like they're going to have different sounds.
Yes,
so
totally.
It's a start. It's a start. I think it's a good start, and it's, you know, we're teaching people, right? So
it's a start, but it's also predicated on very reproducible results. I mean, so do all Gorilla Glues fit a caryophyllene dominance, or just certain?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like environmental effects of your grow can take an OG myrcene dominant, or they can push the limonene up, and then it's limonene dominant. But really, it's still beta caryophyllene, myrcene, and limonene, right? Are the top 3.
And Ryan, isn't it true that caryophyllene is essentially ubiquitous in all green plants, right? I think if you extract just about any green plant on earth, you'll find caryophyllene. It's one of those ubiquitous terpenes that's just everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's really prevalent. It's not ubiquitous though, because you can knock out the sesquiterpenes and have varieties that are just monoterpene, that are almost only monoterps, right?
It's prevalent in most essential oils that I've looked at, like mint oils. It's in catmint oil, and I know it's in spearmint and peppermint too as well. I just assume that it's just one of those compounds that if there are glandular trichomes, it's in there. Caryophyllene, just like one of those basic molecules that's expressed.
Yeah, but it's funny though, because I mean, when they pursued corn and they went after the sweet corn and they started breeding for sugar content, you know, it's like you do with selections. When you select for one thing, you're unconsciously selecting against something else, right? And it turns out that most modern corn varieties have actually purged out beta caryophyllene, which is strange, because beta caryophyllene is a compound that's kind of, it's bitter tasting to bugs, right? And it's even produced in roots, right? So like, there's corn variety. They have these corn varieties that are the high sugar varieties. They get worked over by, you know, certain grubs and stuff in the soil, and they're actually now going back and breeding beta caryophyllene back into the corn.
Wow.
I'll find out. Let me just give me 2 seconds. I'll find a paper and I'll post it.
Do you know if they're the shrunken, or the SU, or the SUE, or do you know which version it is that you're talking about?
No, I'll get the paper and put it up, and then you can have a look.
Okie dokie.
Wow, that's crazy. I know that they were trying to put protein content. I know this was like high lysine corns that, you know, are genetically modified to do all kinds of stuff. But whew, man, it's scary.
Well, they have what they call, you know, sweet and super sweet, and the super sweets also have when you get the corn seed for planting, it's shrunk up like a raisin. I mean,
yeah. I mean, here in the Mid-Atlantic, there's something called Jersey white corn, and I guess it's maybe native to New Jersey. It's small little pearl giblets, and they're just wonderful. It's only basically harvested at this time of year, from now till like maybe you know, the end of harvest. But it's wonderfully sweet. It's great. It's the best corn on the cob you've ever had.
You can just eat it without even cooking it, probably.
Cooking it
Without
and then
cooking
slathering butter and salt over it is the way I like it. Right.
Bong rib.
So yeah.
All right, so I put two papers in our chat, and for anybody that's in the viewers chat, it's called Amaze beta-caryophyllene synthase implicated in indirect defense responses against herbivores is not expressed in most American maize varieties.
That's what it's called.
That's the paper, yeah.
All right, I'll try to paste that into the chat room so they can try to find the link. Maybe I can even just paste the link into their chat room.
Yeah, they can just Google that and they'll find it. It'll come up. But and then just, you know, if people are looking to want to find the paper, just go to scihub.c.
They weren't looking at the big picture. They were strictly focusing at the small picture. And they were incredibly successful at creating what they did too.
Yeah, well, that was
in America.
But remember, what they were doing was looking for corn or looking for high sugar content.
Oh, I know exactly what they were doing, and they were very, very successful. But they were only looking at the picture right in front of them and not the big picture, which is what you're talking about with this paper.
Yeah, exactly. When you go for one thing, I mean, there's trade-offs, right? So it's like you said, they're looking at that one fine point, right?
Yep, and they were quite successful at looking at that one fine point.
Yeah, absolutely. But down line, they realized that it was
not that simple.
It had other downstream effects, right?
Hey, did you want to talk a little bit about the effects we got from that pine and lime?
Yeah, the limonene and pinene, the reason that variety is so special is that it's a rare terpene profile. It falls back to kind of the hippie weed of the 70s, you know. It's like, and it was really, it's like I said, it was just up and focused, right?
Yeah, it was.
Well, one thing is for sure, they are both potentiators and moderators.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, pinene's got that bronchodilation effect, right? It basically opens up your airways and lets all the other wonderful things from cannabis in.
Yeah, and limonene speeds up your heart rate, and you know that kind of gives you that get up and go feeling, right?
Yeah, it was definitely nice to dab. We dabbed it out of existence.
It would be interesting to see the difference between one that was slightly limonene dominant or pinene dominant.
Marcus, what was the consistency of the rosin? Was it tacky or sticky, or what was it like? Was it shattered?
It was quite, you know, pull and snap kind of sticky, but it looked like very, very like.
What temperature and pressure is your?
I think I might have even got one picture on my phone.
It was really light colored.
Yeah.
Marcus, can you share what temperature and pressure you're pressing at?
We pressed at 80 psi, and the temp.
What was the temperature? I missed that.
It was about like 190 to 200.
190 to 200.
And was it glassy or buttery?
It was kind of in the middle of both of them. It wasn't butter in the sense that you could pull it and it would like stretch, but it had the color of something that like looked buttered.
That's why I asked, because the color does look, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't. There was, we did 2 squishes with this one.
Well, all I can say is, isn't life wonderful?
I bet. I was really impressed with that Sasquatch machine. I mean, the lemon pine, it's such a low yielding variety that, you know, making extracts by putting it in a column is not really an efficient way to go. I mean, sure, you'd make it, but you wouldn't get very much.
Why is
being able to have that Sasquatch and just put in like, you know, a couple of grams or whatever it was and squeeze it out? It was, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. It really was.
So Ryan, why is that? Is that variety just is a low oil producer? Is that just a
no? The amount of biomass that you get off of a light is not. It's like it's hard to say. Oh, those 3,000 watts of electricity in like 12 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever we were growing it for, it yields such a low amount of flowers that to like just take it all and load it into a column isn't really economically viable, right? So we've really been consuming it as flowers. But you know, like we took it and put it in the Sasquatch press, and it coughed out some beautiful. It really was the essence of the plant. I mean, it was a really, really nice set of dabs.
Was that a fresh squash or a dried bud squash?
It was cured bud.
Okay.
Yeah, it had a nice moisture content in it. It wasn't like powdery, snappy, but at the same time, it certainly wasn't wet.
Yeah.
It was just it was well cured bud.
Yeah, I mean that stuff is about 6 or 8 weeks from harvest, so it's been in a bucket. But it's you know, it maintained its proper 8 to 10% water content. So
the Sasquatch, yeah, it's a great little machine for sure. I'm sure they're going to make smaller ones so that people can, you know, feel a little more like it might be a little bit much having this giant thing on at your house.
I got a kick out of watching you squash it too. I mean, you weren't just using your eyes, you were using your ears and your nose to like, you know, you're kind of like the resin whisperer.
Yeah, I'm like, just a second, man. I'm listening.
Quiet.
It was the herb talking to him.
It was saying.
No, it was cool though. I mean, really, I'll come back and squish more because it's like that's the way to consume it. Those dabs were so tasty. I mean, they were just so tasty.
Even the way it smelt, like fresh on, you know, you could just be like, oh my God, some of those terpenes there, just very nice.
So Ryan, is it your opinion that that's something that can be done, you know, commercially, the squishing, you know, to make rosin as a concentrate product in Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a very. It has to bulk it up to a process where you're, you know, I saw someone posted a 300-gram shatter patty that they had done. It's like that's the type of process that you need. You need to be producing it 300 grams at a time. Like producing a gram at a time isn't going to cut it in a legalization world, right? Like that's more of a home user type of thing.
Oh yeah. Even 3,000, you know, like 30,000 grams, like who knows how. It's crazy to think that, well, I guess there is enough cannabis being grown in the sense, but just not by licensed producers. But licensed producers, if they all got together now, they would not have enough cannabis for even like a fraction of the people that want to use it right now. And so it's kind of laughable that there's even this option of a monopoly like that when they can't even supply.
It's not a monopoly. I mean,
are you talking about supplying herbally or 10 times that much so that they can make something like this?
I would like concentrates myself. I think that the main reason why dispensaries have a strong position is that they're still offering concentrates to people, and the LPs are unable to.
Yeah, the government really needs to deal with that issue. The whole thing is when they're creating this legal market, they need Canadians to buy in, right? They need to then accept that is going to be the new source for flowers. And if you keep, you know, if you say it's like they did with the dried with the dried cannabis at first, they said no, you can only consume dry cannabis. You can't have oils, right? You can't have extracts. So if they don't have the extracts available, of course the black market is going to still persist. I know guys that are like MMAR growers and they produce for dispensaries and stuff, but they've moved 100% to production for extracts, right? That's what they do is they grow greenhouses of weed and they extract.
And let's not forget this though, one major thing, the LPs would have been doing a lot better had they not maintained the exact same prohibition-based prices for cannabis. What the fuck is that?
Wow, this again, it's typically LPs are owned by people that are from outside the cannabis industry. I mean, it takes $10 million to get a license, right? So that's not your average stoner or grower that can come in and compete in that. They can't play in that pool. So it ends up being a bunch of money guys, and with money guys, the first thing is how do they get their money back?
Yeah,
so, of course,
just keep the same prohibition-based prices. So that's what I mean. Like, I think the black market would have been more drastically affected, just like anything. If all of a sudden people can buy something, it's good quality and it's not expensive, like make it inexpensive and go for the long game.
But let's flip the script. I mean, how much would 5-star go for in the new model? Like 5-star should command the highest price.
Right. But that price will be dependent upon how much material we can get to grow that kind of material, you know, to process into that product, and what was the cost on doing it. It's never as much as what was charged.
Have been based on prohibition.
Yeah, but what
once prohibition's gone, then the price will be supply and demand, and what the real price to produce cost.
Right, that's what I mean. It's not, there's a little bit of a gap there in the actual production cost. And I mean, they're making it seem like, well, the production costs are high because, you know, some of them are putting $30-40 million into their facilities. So yeah, that is a high production cost. But in the long run, it's like a toll bridge. They don't need to charge you $100 each time, because the consistency and the growth and the sheer volume that will move through that bridge will pay it off like tenfold in, like, you know, 20 years or something. 10 years.
Think about the lime and pine again. So say they're growing like BC grapefruit, for example. They're producing 2 ounces a square foot, or like, you know, they're doing a gram per watt, right? Well, the lime and pine is going to produce like 200 grams per 1,000 watt light. It's not going to produce a kilo. So it's 5 times. Therefore, the footprint is 5 times more expensive than if you're growing a high yielding variety.
Exactly.
Right. So instead of like $4 a G, it will be $20 a G.
Well, but you're not thinking about the rest of the world getting involved in that same cultivar being grown in Jamaica or Brazil or India, and being able to express that terpene expression even better under the sun, under a huge, you know, on an acreage. And now we're getting into, you know, the supply and demand and agricultural product, and the price is not going to be as high.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, that's theoretically possible. The regulators don't really go for that yet, but they will.
No, they have to. Once America goes federal, all the other countries are just like, they're so confused by this state thing that's happening and money that's being made, and Colorado made 200 million. Like, it's just like constant, right? All over the world. Trust me, people from governments are seeing this shit.
The future of cannabis and extracts is, look at how many countries can you buy wine from? How many countries can you buy distilled spirits from? That is the future of cannabis.
Yeah,
it will be an international trade item.
And you know what? I think
you can't go from state to state, but that's going to change really fast.
No, I think you're right, Sam. And I think that certain places will uncover certain cultivars that express almost, you know, the highest expression, I don't know how to really word it properly, but yeah, you know, the way I bring it up all the time, France is known for some of the best lavender, because for whatever reason in that region, all the variables, environmental, everything adds up to a beautiful expression of terpenes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same with wine. I mean, that's why Australia is known for Shiraz or Syrah grapes, right? They grow really well in that area. They make a really nice product. So
it's obvious cannabis will be that way, both grown outdoors in perfect conditions that allow it to finish fully, and also in greenhouses with or without supplemental lights and darkening, and indoors under lights if that is required for some reason, whether it be legal problems or weather, or maybe medical requirements.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it happen when, you know, right now, again, and remember, it is all growers and they're expecting these high prices, but remember what happened when Scott or Shanti Baba and all those folks were growing down in Switzerland, and they went to the tomato growers and they said, hey, and, you know, if you get a plant, we're going to give you the clones, and if you get the plants to knee high, they'll be worth this much, and if they get to waist high, they'll be worth this much. And you know, to the tomato growers, they were making like, you know, $1 or $2 or whatever it was per square foot. So when you offered them 5, they were stoked. I mean, the growers were so thrilled to grow cannabis rather than tomatoes because they made 5 times as much. But the reality is that to a dope grower. I mean, they were or the guys that were buying it from them, it was worth like $20 a square foot or $30 a square foot, right? So when you get the growers from other industries involved, they're gonna. That's when the costs are really gonna drop, right? Because they don't have the expectations of a cannabis grower. They have the expectation of someone that's producing. They're getting by just producing like just a couple of dollars per square foot.
Yeah, I will say that I've seen. Well, sorry, Sam. Go ahead.
In the Netherlands, the margin used to be 25 cents, or what could make or break would be 50 cents a square meter. But that was in the straight flower and vegetable market.
Yeah. So when the laws change enough that all those guys can actually get into the game without having to go through these insane restrictions to become a licensed producer, that's when we're going to really see the cheap cannabis coming out, because it will shift from those few people that are growing cannabis now to, like Todd's been saying for so long, it'll be an agricultural crop where anybody's prices are going to crash.
Hey, Ryan, did you see this PCR tool that Kevin's company released for russet mites? I'm putting the link up right now. Mark, I don't know if you could put that link in the YouTube chat.
Absolutely, I will.
But
yeah, it was powdery mildew and russet mites, right? So that's the other one. Yeah, I mean PCR is a method for detecting unique DNA sequences, right? So every species has unique DNA sequences. So if you can identify those unique sequences, then you can use them as a probe to see if they're there. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Is this overkill, or I'm just trying to say how useful this will be?
Yeah, it's another little tool in the toolbox, but I mean, it's only useful because it only, like I said, it only detects that one unique sequence that they've identified in russet mites. So
it might be useful for both broad mites, russet mites, and using it on little tiny clones that you were taking. If you were going to grow them to be a big mother, it might be nice to know that they were free of these problems.
It can't be.
Yeah, well, what it is
can't be used to diagnose it. It can only be used once the infection is taken place, or could it look at the?
I think Kevin told me that it was effective on a single spider mite.
Yeah,
egg.
Well, that's the beauty thing about how PCR works is that's what they use in crime, right? To identify blood samples, because you can take the tiniest tiny little piece of DNA and you amplify it in the process, and you can say, oh wow, there's this, in that little tiny piece of DNA we found this sequence, right? And so it's that the reason I think it's useful for russet mites or for cyclamen mites or whatever they are is that they're so small, they're hard to identify.
I can't see them, really. I mean, without some handheld device, I can't see them.
No, you see the damage, but you don't see
Yes, exactly. You know something's wrong.
Yeah. So that'll help them, it'll help people identify.
But like, if you have an infection in one part of the plant that's isolated from the rest of the mass of the plant, and you sample from the rest of the mass, will you also come up with a positive hit, even though where you sampled from isn't necessarily infected?
I don't think so.
But you have to have the DNA. It has to have the DNA for it to work.
Part of the creature.
Yeah, DNA doesn't.
Right. So the
foreign organism doesn't move into the plant, right?
Right. So there's nothing systemic about infection in the plant that now creates some kind of biomolecule that can be traced.
There might be a virus transmitted, but that's not part of the mite directly. It's a virus, but mites do spread viruses.
Right. I mean, this is how they test for E. coli in the food supply. I mean, it's a very, very sensitive methodology. I was just wondering, is it really, and I don't have any other person that I think is more qualified than Ryan to understand, whether or not this is like overkill, or is this something that's going to be in every lab? Like everyone's going to have one of these things, because this is just going to be like the bee's knees when it comes to how to determine whether or not you're weak.
I've never had russet mites. I'm not saying you can't, but I've been growing for 40 years, I've never had russet mites. I've never had broad mites.
Yeah, I mean, the question as to whether it's overkill is it's really like.
Do you have the problem? Then it's not overkill.
Exactly. But I mean, for example, like you don't need it to identify the two-spotted spider mite because the damage is apparent. I mean, it's pretty clear when you see that leave.
Right.
No, you've got mites. You don't need to go and get a PCR test to say.
And if you actually get webs and you're really styling, you can really tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like I said, the cyclamen mites are so small, and the leaf, like it's one of those things where it's like growers are like, there's something wrong with my plant. What the hell is going on? Right? You get this sample, this symptom, but it's hard because the mites are so tiny, you can't see them. It's hard to identify that this is the pest. So for that type of thing, sure, it would be a cool way to say, no, you've got russet mites, so you need to do this, right?
Right.
But
positively identify that as the
quite
problem.
handy with new material that you were going to bring in from outside of in other words, if your greenhouse is quarantined and you're going to bring fresh material in, to be able to test it with something like this might be something handy.
The way I feel about it is this: is you've got there's sample prep and there's collecting and all that stuff takes time when you're doing that, right? But so to get back like one piece of information, like mites present, yes or no, or Y chromosome present, yes or no, it's like, who cares when it's like one at a time you're getting these traits. However, if you can get them all together in a gene panel or on a gene chip, and then then you submit that to the lab and you get back information on 100 markers or 1,000
different things, right? All the pathogens, all the ones that are bad. So you can do this, as I understand, not on just live plants, but on harvested material and cured material as well.
Yeah, if it's DNA based, it doesn't. As long as you haven't, as long as the DNA is present, you can do these tests, right?
Right. So basically, you can do that test up to the processing of the material, right? Because I'm sure after it's processed into a concentrate or extract, if it was mite infested, the extract also have the DNA?
Yeah, most likely. I mean, definitely, especially if it's coming from stuff like there's no chemical process. Like, for example, if you were squishing, right? There's going to be DNA in the squish too.
Huh.
Right. So it would be interesting. I mean, these are all experiments that need to be done. It's like it's such a new science.
I'm going to copyright the name Mighty Resin.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you're going to have people lining up to buy the Mighty Resin.
The Mighty Resin.
But yeah, no, it's cool. It's like I said, it'll be. We're working. I think these single tests are like I kind of roll my eyes out a little bit because it's like having information on one marker is not that exciting. But what is exciting is that we're on the path to, Kevin's slowly building his army of he's expanding the toolbox. And right now he's got a cool toolbox with a couple of tools in it, but one day it'll be full with tools. And that's when it'll be really useful to growers and breeders. Yeah. And so like, as much as I don't get all excited about, okay, yay, we got a marker for mite tests now. I mean, that doesn't really excite me, but what excites me is that we're on the path.
It also is getting the conversation going, I guess, in a sense, with some people that might not otherwise be having it.
And having people who have that expertise to be able to have the wherewithal to be able to bring those products to fruition.
What we really need is, instead of a mildew test, is a mildew susceptibility test.
Right.
Where we can test the genome before it was very tall, and you would determine, no, this should not be saved because it's incredibly susceptible to mildew.
Yes.
So like most of the cultivars on the West Coast?
Yeah, pretty much. I was going to ask you, Chimera, I just was looking at some of the approved products in California, and there was one called Regalia that is a natural organic fungicide, and I put a link to it in the chat that we have, and I was just wondering if you had any information on that.
Yeah, I think regalia is a bacteria, right? It's like one of those ones that colonizes the leaf surface and makes it more difficult for the spores to, like I said, they colonize the leaf surface, so they kind of occupy the real estate on the leaf. So when the spore lands and germinates, it's harder for it to control.
And if you use that kind of a control when they test your cannabis for purity and cleanliness, will that set the test off?
Depends on the type of test that they do. So if they're doing,
it might make it flunk.
Yeah, especially if they're doing, like, for example, like Kevin McKernan's test, if they're using a DNA, right? If you're probing it for DNA, you can find these like really minute amounts. So if they're doing a DNA-based test, look for
the dead spores of the mildew, which didn't germinate, but instead landed on this other thing you're talking about.
It's just for your information, guys. Sam, it's an extract from the plant giant knotweed.
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what it is, and I'm saying if you sprayed your plant with it, then a spore from mildew landed on it, it might die rather than germinate on the plant. And if you then took a DNA sample of that leaf, you would still get the spore from the mildew, so it would maybe test positive. Or can it tell the difference between dead and alive?
No, if it was DNA, it's just is DNA present or not?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, doesn't that make the DNA test kind of flawed? Because, dust, is organic and it's present in our atmosphere. So if, certain particles landed on it, you're just screwed. It would be post-processing. Everything you did was right. You grow these perfect organic strawberries and, XYZ lands on it, and then you flunk the test.
Yeah, I mean, they could do what are called calibration curves, right? Like, you test a sample, like we said this a long time ago, but if it's powdery mildew resistant or powdery mildew contamination, you can detect between low, medium, and high levels of contamination, right? So, but again, they gotta do those calibration curves on cannabis and show you have to have low, high, and medium levels of contamination, and then be able to say this is the chemical or the DNA signal that's coming off that. So. But if you look on that little graph that they posted up on the, if you scroll down the first graph on the left, you can see they've compared it to things like actinovate, right? So actinovate is it's a biocontrol, but it's a bacteria that they spray on the leaf. So all I'm saying is that DNA signal is going to be in the plant or on the flower, right, on the leaf.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what will happen with those DNA signals. Will they pass or not pass when it comes to looking for fungus and bacteria and everything else? Maybe it'll set it off.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's so important to choose the test because we're not trying to detect. Who cares if there's the fact that you can find mite DNA on your flower doesn't mean that it's contaminated, right? Because again, you're amplifying these tiny levels of DNA, right? So
yeah. This stuff, for instance, Sam, they're saying that you can spray it the day of harvest on strawberries.
Right. Well, they wash strawberries. Right. We can't wash cannabis. You don't get cannabis.
I can.
It's a different type of plant. It's because it's so oily, right? Like it's.
Bubble Man washes cannabis.
You would be worried about losing that resin, though. Just gonna wash this.
But remember, it happened when people were doing the sulfur too, right? Like the resin glands. People would say when they were burning the herb that they couldn't tell that it had sulfur. Most people couldn't tell, but when you extracted it down, it tasted like fucking burning matches.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
And so that was just a flavor thing. But imagine it was a compound that didn't have flavor, but it had toxicity, right? So you couldn't taste it, but the resin glands are sucking up those chemicals. So it's like it's all I'm saying is that it's not the same thing as strawberries. It's not saying it's safe to spray on strawberries because you can wash strawberries. That's not the same thing with cannabis. It doesn't mean that it's safe to spray on cannabis up till a couple of days before harvest, or even like at like 4 weeks or 5 weeks, because
we used to use BT, Bacteria thuringiensis, a lot, and we tried to use it right up until the plants were about to start flowering. You know, try to strict the use all vegetative, and all it is a organism, a bioorganism. It's nothing dangerous, but people using chemicals during flowering, it's just I can't even think of what to call them.
Well, let me say this too. I totally subscribe to what Ryan's saying. When you start seeing flowers form on your plants at like even week 3, I don't recommend you spray anything on those damn things. I mean, I think that's highly irresponsible, to be honest.
Well, even no matter how safe it is, like, oh, it's a safe biological, it's like, okay, but safe to like burn and inhale into your lungs? Because have they done that research? Because that's generally what's happening to our cannabis and our resin.
No, they haven't.
Right. So that's going to change. Let's go through some of the chemistry and just how much change goes on.
If you're smoking leaves, you have to be careful about anything that gets on the leaves. If you're smoking flowers, then what's on the leaves probably won't have any effect on you. If you're only smoking resin, then yeah, but it also depends. If you're using a biological, these things are not intrinsically going to harm the resin. Whereas some of the chemical sprays, I'm positive that they do poison the resin itself.
So the U.S. EPA regulates these as so-called biopesticides. They're viewed as being sort of more, environmentally friendly, and I think even neem oil falls into that. My catmint insect repellent falls into that. So they're biologically sourced, and think of it as what you're doing is you're augmenting the local biome of the plant by just changing the natural biology that's already happening by giving it a new little biochemical, which is really a biologically derived system. So you're just augmenting the biology. It's not a sprayed chemical. But those chemicals again, or those enzymes, extracts, those types of pre-preparations are usually not as effective and not quite systemic as the chemicals are. But remember that the onus is on the company who registers those things with the EPA to get their EPA registration for those end-use products. And so in order for you to show the efficacy and the safety of those products, you have to conduct trials with humans, which take institutional review board okays and many millions of dollars to actually get approved and actually do. And so Scotts Miracle-Gro claimed this week in the news to actually start that process with the EPA on one particular thing. They're registering something for specific use on cannabis, which tells me that they've done efficacy and they've done some type of probably bridging to human safety studies, because there's been so much work done in agrochemicals to assess their safety. And as we've always pointed out, vegetables, a lot of vegetables are washed, and a lot of those things are applied. And what makes an agrochemical today is not necessarily one that kills bugs and fungus and mites and all that. It's one that breaks down safely by the time that produce gets to Whole Foods and gets sold through Amazon. So by the time all that process happens, that thing will have either photolytically degraded, hydrolytically degraded, actually in some cases biologically degraded by other microbes. So the whole point of this is actually to get human studies to actually show that you can effectively use these treatments in the cultivation of cannabis. And here's our efficacy studies that gives us the label requirements that helps the farmer understand, when I do have this type of infestation, here's the label use rates. And so this is the use rates that basically they have established studies for to show that if you use this product at these use rates, you'll be able to control this particular pest. And most importantly, you won't have any bad effects in the products that are derived from that. That's what's called a registration. That registration costs 10, maybe $100 million. Once you have that registration, then you could start selling this product in the cannabis space. So that's the hill that this company has to climb, Todd. Thanks for bringing this up because it was a really important.
Well, you're going to see a lot more conversation about this because California is starting to release these lists of approved chemicals for cultivation. And so a lot of people are going to be bringing up these questions.
Yeah, they might be approved. And again, they're bridging data without actually having all of the studies in place to say what happens when that's applied to cannabis during flower and residues end up in the extracts and kids are dabbing this on a hot e-nail. Those studies, I can tell you categorically, have not been done. When those studies are done and when we have all that safety information, then they can basically have freedom to operate to sell those kinds of products. But I think the approach that they're taking right now is to use biological control. These enzymes and extracts, again, are viewed more safe. Spinosyn is another natural product that, again, is actually on one of the hot lists of what to look for if you get contaminated stuff in Colorado. There's all kinds of natural products like neem oil. They really are making incredible claims now that neem oil has some connection to cannabis-related hypermesis. I don't know. I've looked at some of the data. I don't know that that's absolutely true, but neem is supposed to have that effect. So, God, is there a correlation between the two? Who knows? Clinical trials will tell. So it's good that research is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't used neem on my plants in 2 decades plus.
Yeah, well, I guess if you're facing a huge economic loss and you're pressured to do whatever you have to do to recover that economic loss, and you're forced to buy some kind of treatment to help you mitigate your pest, I mean, wouldn't it be great to have the knowledge up front, like I think Ryan was pointing to, and to understand the genetic susceptibility of certain varieties and certain grow conditions and certain climates to succumb to certain pests. And maybe what we would do is, hey, let's not grow the sour diesel that time of year. Let's grow the cookies that time of year. Change your cultivation planning and your cultivation practices based on what may or may not be more susceptible to pests and diseases.
Yeah, I was just helping a client lay out a really big grow, and they were choosing their varieties, their genetics to put in, and they wanted to do all these popular market varieties. But because of the regulations that they're in, they can't spray anything for powdery mildew. They have to, so essentially what we did is I totally changed their grow around and put in only varieties that were resistant to powdery mildew. Right? Just because.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
So it's kind of like, unfortunately, the market dictated that they want, the most popular things that would sell really quick, cookies, OG, all that kind of stuff, all the cushes, they're the magnets. Those are the powdery mildew magnets. So it's like filling up your facility with a bunch of stuff that's going to attract problems that you have to deal with isn't really a good idea.
Microscopic problems that you can't see until they're very, very much prevalent everywhere.
Well, that's just a question for Kevin, is that how infected does your grow have to be with powdery mildew to get a positive result on this kind of test?
He said one single spore he can test for. Or no, wait. No,
doesn't that seem out of whack biologically, Ryan?
That's the way the tests work, right? That's what PCR does. PCR, again, for those that don't know, you can Google it, but it's called polymerase chain reaction. And polymerase chain reaction, a DNA method for amplifying specific pieces of DNA, right? So that's the beauty of the test, is you can take minute little, almost undetectable little. I mean, this is what they do. This is what the cops do when they go into a murder scene, and they can find they'll take a tiny little dab of blood that might have been left by the killer, right? And then they can amplify the DNA in it to see and get a signal out of that.
Okay,
Out of
that's
that DNA.
providing that your sample contains a little bit of the DNA. And so I guess the caveat to what Kevin is saying is if there is a huge grow and there's one spore in there and it's on one plant in the corner of the room and you sample over here, you're not going to find it, right? I mean,
No, you won't.
okay.
Because the DNA
Right.
has to be the sample that they're testing.
I think it's more likely that he's saying that there could be a single spore on the
Inside
test.
the sample, in the
Yeah.
sample. Yeah. I get that. Yeah, totally.
But you know what? It's good that it's this. Well, I mean, for cannabis anyway, I'm sure there's probably other industries that have been using this for a long time. But it's like Chimera says, that to get 100 or 200 of those in your toolbox, that would be an extreme value.
Yeah, just imagine if you could swipe a little piece of a bud on a stick and it would, change colors if it had mildew. In other words, if the grower fucked up.
They speak English. It's mildew.
Okay.
Mildew, not mildew.
Well, I'm giving you the European version.
Yeah, speak
You
English.
say banana, I'll say
Mildew.
Mildew.
you say tomato, I'll say tomato.
I'm just giving you shit, Daddy-O.
It's quite all right. I don't mind at all.
Your German root.
Let me guess. You have both pronunciations copyrighted and patented, right?
Both of them correct. Not to mention the Italian and Portuguese version.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at this county fair thing. I think it's a great first step that these guys are going by the dominant terpene. But I think the inevitable evolution of this is that we're going to get like this is what we call terpene superclasses, right? So, but eventually what's going to happen is these terpene classes will get broken down another step into, and then they'll start, then it really will be like will compete against like. Like, for example, like, the lime and pine would fit into the pinene superclass, but it would be competing against Blue Dream, which is a totally different flower, right? They're really, even though they both are pinene dominant, it's really not the same. You're comparing apples to oranges, right? And the idea that I think is the real evolution of these cannabis cups is where you compare. It's like it's like a dog show. You compare huskies to huskies and pugs to pugs and labs to labs, right? And then you do the best in show, but really, like, you don't want to be comparing the pug to the lab because they're totally different animals. They're different beasts.
Well, I like to compare the pugs to a Great Dane because the Great Danes always win. They're obviously a bigger, better dog.
Yeah.
Well, cross the two, Sam, and come out with the Great Pug.
Yeah,
that would be cruel to the dog.
It really is an important thing that you're comparing because they are such like I said, like the lime and pine. It's not OG. You can't compare it to OG because they're totally different types of experiences, right? So saying
maybe what needs to be listed is the top 10 terpenes, and in with some sort of a display so you can see that terpene, the pinene, it's got the most. It's 50% of the total terpenes.
Even the top 3 is enough to really differentiate.
Yeah, it would be a good start. You're right.
Yeah, I mean it is enough. It's like if you have the top 3, it's like now you're actually comparing.
I have a slightly different idea. And again, it falls less along the dog analogy and more along the music analogy. So at a bluegrass festival, they have competitions, and they have competitions for bands, but they also have competitions for individual instrumentalists. Like there'll be a bluegrass or a banjo, an upright bass competition, a mandolin competition. And so maybe a way to do a competition along this analogy is to do the best in show, which is that, hey, no matter what terpene you can pack into it, this is just the best shit. And it goes, right? Best in show. But maybe the other way to categorize these is to say, okay, if the terpenes that we see most predominant in cannabis are these 5 or these 10, your strain has to fit a terpene dominance in that category to compete in that competition, right? And so you use the terpene dominance. And again, I think the more you use, rather than 5, do the first 10 or the first 15 that are all found in cannabis. Before you know it, you'll have all these instrumental competitions as well as the overall band competition, which is sort of what it's all about, right? I don't know. Just an idea.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way it'll be also. You're always going to have best in show, right? And that's what they are now. But it's like, I think you got to give props to the best rows in every class, right? Because they are such a different user experience. Like the experience of smoking an OG or smoking that lime and pine. I mean, they're totally different animals.
Roses are actually a good example because the modern rose is not scented. They bred for beauty.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder how much that had to do with UPOV rules being so based on morphology. Like, yeah, it seems like there could be another competition that is the nicest rose.
Right. Where do the rose competitions happen? Is it only once a year?
I'm sure they happen all over. You know, I know they bloom in different times of the year, right? Depending on the country you're in.
Yep. Google it. There's the Rose Today. There's the Rosé Today competition. That seems to be the big one.
Well, like there's a mango competition. Well, there's a mango representation every year where they have a representation of all 3,000 types of mangoes.
I need to go to that.
So, I mean, you can see at some point somebody will, maybe they'll just be, the Green Crack Festival or the Haze Festival. Things become more specific, becoming a region because some will become regional genetics. It's just interesting.
I'm looking forward to the evolution of those competitions where they become less competitive and less dick waving and more just appreciating of the beauty.
True.
You know what I mean? Like if you win the biggest hog at the county fair, it's like that's not that big a deal, right?
No, it isn't. It'd be nice if it was more about the cultivation and the cannabis or the extract than it was about the ego and the bump in sales, like a lot of people think.
Or what we were talking about with Forrest. Whoever donates the most to children, whoever does the most for the industry, those are the
well, that's a different measurement, though. I mean, now you're getting into it. Industry
should be the people who help out everybody and not just themselves and not just push themselves forward.
But we're just talking about comparing apples to apples, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's just flowers.
Right. No, I get it, Todd.
That's achievement. Yeah. That's on a whole other. And you can't really award people like Forrest for what they're really doing, in my opinion, because we should all be supporting his work. In my opinion, we should all be wanting to accomplish what he is setting out to accomplish.
Having a competition where rather than submitting extracts, that you can actually submit extracts rather than some judge panel to actually patients who need medicine.
No, can we show you this?
That's what I said last week when I told Forrest I'm just going to donate whatever. That was a personal thing that I said, but at the same time, like Forrest, we were supporting him last week. It was amazing to see everyone donating. By the way, you guys donated almost $700 to the Caladrius Network, and that'll go into buying little jars and lids and stuff for the creams to go in for some of those kids with the skin diseases. So it's the good work. It's a good thing. I'm not trying to say shut down competitions, but definitely I hear what both Todd and Mark are saying. It's like, yes, continue to have the competitions, but wow, putting everything, all we're trying to do is figure out ways this community can put things aside, while it's kind of like that, put a couple of plants in the back of the grow room for a good cause, so it's like in this community when we're doing things, if there's an event where we're going to drop like $23,000 to promote our company because we're all about the patients, maybe kick $1,000 down or something down, some time, some energy, some focus, something that just shows that you're also and
your time, the most valuable of all commodities.
Absolutely.
Time.
Can I toss this out there
Time
too?
and your attention. Your time and your attention can be way more valuable than a dollar donation, you know?
Yeah, and one of my thoughts is also is in line with what Tim Blake was saying, is that, you know, they're seeing growers with outdoor that's really good cannabis having an impossible time to get rid of it. And what that really means is it's lowering the price threshold that people need to meet to be able to get into it. And we are going to see more and more of that cannabis going to people that really need it, because now people can afford to give it away and they can afford to be more generous, because literally the stuff's not worth that much in the first place anymore like it used to be. So I think that this is where people like him could benefit if we could focus our generosity, because I don't want to say that the little bits of crumbs that go to the competitions are really what we should be donating to the kids. We should be giving, you know, maybe I'm too much of a socialist, you know what I mean? But I believe we should be helping our neighbors. You know, when I started the San Diego Compassion Club, I was donating the cannabis I had, and I was having a lot of the friends I worked with allowing me to redistribute stuff. Because once they realized you're visiting hospitals, you're actually seeing people that are sick, that have had cancer, dude, I'll give you pot. And it was like, we just didn't know there was anyone doing that to give pot to. And that's really what the bridge became. And I just became the happy deliverer of other people's generosity. And we all need to do that. And when I was asked about that on the San Diego media, my comment is that, look, when your kid or your relative is sick, it's a question of compassion. It's not a question of capitalism, you know? So we really all need to get into this thing of compassion. And you know, my mom didn't sell me weed when I was going through chemo. Imagine if that was the situation, you know? And this is what I think we can all do, is we can find outlets like guys like Forrest, and we can foster that generosity and help little kids and old ladies and people you love. That's the whole point of this.
You know, I'm sure that if we hooked up even Tim Blake with Forrest, that he would somehow involve, you know, it would be a good thing just to forward the, you know, along, because people that are doing big things and making moves always need to, you know, and that's Tim's whole thing is community and like doing the right thing. And, you know, like I bet you he would have a great relationship with Forrest.
Is your cannabis up in Canada, is it tax-free for patients?
No, not.
Oh, that isn't, hey?
Yeah, it's not here either, you know.
GST or provincial too?
They subject to GST. They're trying to, because it's weird, because medicine typically isn't, right? So Hill and a whole bunch of people have been really lobbying hard to get that removed.
Right. They don't charge provincial though, right?
Currently they don't, but I bet that'll change under the new legalization. Obviously the provinces will grab their piece too.
Of course.
Yeah, I was a test case for California for the State Board of Equalization, because we went with the argument that it is medicine, and the State Board of Equalization said we don't care, we're taxing it. So that's why we pay an over-the-counter tax. And so I was saying, well, it should be tax-free, these donations. Well, unfortunately, we can't get nonprofit status for medical cannabis. It's illegal federally, so there is no tax write-off. Everything that we donate, such as we give free medicine to 250 qualifying patients, and up to 2% to Berkeley patients every single year, we do that free. You know, that's just the realities of what it is. You know, there's no ability for anyone to actually have an ability to actually tax write off something like that. And something that we're trying to work on the state level right now is I want to continue to be able to donate and give those patients free cannabis. But with the new laws that are being passed, that becomes much more difficult. So we're actually trying to lobby on Capitol Hill. You know, it's tough.
Well, can I point out something that is fucked up in California? You don't pay tax on your pet's medication. Okay, because they have considered that it creates a financial hardship on the pet owner, so that they shouldn't have to pay taxes on if your dog gets hurt. But if your grandma is going through chemo and she needs some medical cannabis, tax her. And that's where we got to get into a different conversation and demand equal. We should at least have equal rights as pets, right?
Well, I spent I spent 6 figures on a lawyer that was the former head of the State Board of Equalization and still lost.
Well, it's not on you. It doesn't matter.
No. I understand that. I just want to point.
Small little bump in their road, and they were trying to make a point with BPG
Right.
that was a fucked up point. But now technically they're now in a situation where if you do have your California card, you do not pay taxes on that. And the only taxes that should be collected, and I'm not sure if this is correct going forward, will be on recreational or adult use sales. If you have a California cannabis card, you will be tax exempt for your purchases of medical cannabis.
And
but
that tax is 15%.
And that tax is 15%. That'll be January 18th, or is that
January 1st? I mean January 1st.
January 1st of 2018. The tax on cannabis will be 15%. Can I ask you this? On top of the 10% we pay or 9% we pay as sales tax?
Yes.
Wow.
There is no, to my knowledge, there is no waiving of the OTC tax per county. So like in Alameda County, we pay 9.0% over the counter tax. So you'll pay that, to my knowledge, as well as a 15%. And then in Berkeley, then I have a 2.5% wholesale tax and then a 2.5% retail tax. So
Jesus.
You're talking a tax of 29%.
Oh my
out
God,
the
that's
door.
ridiculous. But what about this? Is it possible that we start selling this herb as medication for dogs and cats, and then just let our grandmas and our dads and moms and all these other people just use it? Can we get around this? Is there a loophole we can find?
Well, can I throw this out there in all honesty? The people that I think that the whole medical, everybody needs a medical card thing is going to evaporate when nobody needs a medical card. And the people that are really sick, are obviously going to continue to be really sick because that's the fucking cards they were dealt in life. But and they're going to pursue medical cannabis use because they have to, not because, they feel like alternating beer with some cannabis on a Friday night and now they don't need a damn doctor's note. So I think doctor's notes are going to go the way of, nowhere, because you're not going to need it. You're just going to need to be 21 or over. Who's going to need to pay a doctor $100 for some freedom papers when you're already free?
Patients that don't want to pay those taxes, so you don't have to pay those taxes.
Legitimate patients will still be in relationships with their doctors. And, I don't mean legitimate like everyone that says they use cannabis is illegitimate. I just mean like, look, if you're seeing a doctor all the time because you're fucking, a step away from dying, that's not going to change. So you're going to still be there like, hey, and if you can save 15, 29, whatever percent it'll end up work on being, people should get their California cannabis cards and they should avert the taxes because it's their right to do so.
Right. Crazy.
That said, though, even with the taxes, I still think stuff's going to drop. Alcohol and tobacco is got taxes on it that are ridiculous. When I used to go get my mom's cigarettes when I was a little kid, they were under $1, and now they're stupid money. I don't even know how much they are because I've never smoked them, but they're taxed incredibly. And, BFD, they're still legal and no one's shooting each other up over packs of cigarettes.
29%. It's just like such a ridiculous.
Well, the discussion back in the day is, hey, we don't care until it's taxed. Let's just pay a tax on it. Well, this is what happens when and people are keeping a diligent eye on this. It's just the reality of the potentiality of these local governments that have passed these laws in the absence of regulation or state regulation.
Etienne, do you know what the tax on alcohol is?
Not even close to that.
Do you know what it is? I have no idea.
Not off the top of my head. I used to have that in my head, but apparently it got pushed out by other facts and figures.
Sometimes that happens.
I think of it like this, though. I mean, granted, we'll be paying taxes, but it's not even close to the friggin' tax that we've paid for prohibition. I mean, an ounce of weed shouldn't cost $400, man. I don't give a shit what you grew it with or how much love you gave it. That is utterly ridiculous. So I think get cannabis into the hands of the people and whatever. I mean, it'll be nice to see also tested weed that's not, basically laden with pesticides and growth hormones and every other thing we can't see or smell. So in many ways, I look forward to the change.
Yeah, me too. It's coming. There's no stopping it. That's for certain. Acres will be grown. Sections.
Well, with this also as well, you'll also have more labs, you know, because regional areas will now have laboratories so that people can actually send and get their cannabis tested. And that's going to elevate everything, because that's when you'll start to see street dealers saying, yeah, this is tested. When you start hearing that, that's a whole change in the game. There's no discussion on that level that I know from anybody who's like, yeah, man, I got this shit tested, and here's why it's this price, you know. I know it at the retail level.
Standardized methods by certified laboratories that have to hold up to a scrutiny of a third-party testing every quarter. It's the only way. You have to, you know, these labs have to be watched like any other consumer product.
The labs need to be ring tested, like you say, quarterly or whenever.
It'll start to happen though, you know, when the labs themselves are not, you know, quasi-activists for what they're doing. I mean, a lot of these people that initially started the labs are heroes to me, because they were facing a ridiculous fine, like $10,000 per test they did. Correct. And they did it anyway. And you know what? This is the kind of proactivity we need, or we're not going to have an industry. You know, this stuff didn't start out of nothing. It started out of people risking their ass and taking a chance and making what is now commonplace science, which is something that wasn't available. I mean, 20 years ago, when I was in the Bel Air place, I got arrested, I was looking for all my own equipment because there was no labs I could take anything to. And if I didn't acquire my own equipment, I would never be able to get cannabinoid tests of what I was making.
And that's why I have 3 labs, and I do read and test them all the time. It's more than quarterly, because, you know, we were pioneers in this. So it's kind of always been one of those things where we're always keeping everybody on their toes. But now that they're calibrated, once you have a good calibrated lab and they're actually calibrating their machines and cleaning it and doing everything properly, as Dr. Sheldon will admit, you get exact science, and that's what we need. No more of the hearsay and conjecture anymore. We get real data, replicatable data that will then spread into these other states, that will then spread into these local regions. So, you know, because each agricultural department in the county, or like in Louisiana, you know, I grew up in sugarcane country, so there was a certified regional representative that actually came and tested and made sure that everybody is growing proper to the regulatory standards. That's the accepted standards for, you know, what is growing. And so that was backed up by actual science. They actually have testers and things that they can take into the field that are calibrated to that specific agricultural product. So it will become that way in point in time with cannabis, where you'll have, you know, even because we had a U.S. Department of Agricultural representative in the region as well to back up the local regional data and testers and laboratory, which will, of course, employ lots of people throughout the United States, because you're talking all these regional oversight and things that these taxes are going to go to pay for, that are necessary evils. You know, people hate regulation, but at the same time, we have to have somebody out there that's unitarily making sure everybody is doing things properly. Otherwise, we're back to the same point where we were before. So it's very important steps that we're making toward. And by having laboratories that are properly testing, and then showing other laboratories through ring testing how to actually calibrate their machines and get them up to standards, besides, you know, becoming proprietary, you know, knowledge, it now becomes universal knowledge for everyone, so that everyone has access to their testing at a reasonable rate. Because let me tell you, it's expensive testing, and it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I've spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on testing. But it's a necessary evil to get to the point that where our testing is real and we have real data, and so that we can actually take forward knowing that everything we have is actually properly done and tested. And now that everybody else is held to the same standards, it's going to ripple across the effect, because I'm no longer bearing that personal responsibility, which I have, and willfully. Now it will be spread across through all these different regulatory agencies and oversight bodies that will actually make sure that, one, I'm not making sure that my labs are calibrated. There are standards that are actually making them happen. agricultural centers, and on top of that we'll have hopefully in the future organic standards and certifications, so that you can actually go through the 2-year process to actually become a certified organic grower, so then you can actually have certified organic cannabis. That's going to be the next step. We still have to pierce that veil. And once that is actually broken through these regulations, which we should see here in California, but national certification may still say that, well, we're going to hold off until it's federally there, because we haven't seen that certification really pop up in Colorado. Have you heard any discussion of organic certification in Pennsylvania, Dr. Sheldon?
No, I haven't even heard of it in Colorado. I think I heard of it in the hemp side of the Colorado industry, but I'm not familiar with it on the medicinal or recreational side. But
I bet it happens real fast because Whole Foods can't sell it until it's certified organic, and Amazon just bought Whole Foods, so of course they'll force cannabis to be allowed to be organic also.
Yeah, if anything, I would expect Amazon to be the first online deliverer of cannabis.
Well, I didn't say it. You did.
So, time out. How much did
Dude,
they
I know
pay
they're
for?
friendly.
They bought Whole Foods?
They bought Whole Foods for $14 billion the other day.
Yeah, 13.5. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's going shopping for sure. That's just through a whole thing, because Walmart and those have had their their superstores and there's Sam's and their food centers, but this is a huge volley for Amazon.
Well, they say that there's about 1 million existing Amazon Fresh customers. This is Amazon's fresh food delivery business. They imagine that number is going to peak at about 100 million. It's going to go from 1 million to 100 million people buying their groceries through Amazon.com on their phone.
Yeah, just closing grocery stores down, hey?
Well, it was interesting because it's like everything's been going towards the internet in favor of brick and mortar. But now one of the biggest companies, essentially what they did is they went shopping for brick and mortar. Right? Like Amazon bought themselves.
They want to dominate the food market.
And to change it.
They need both.
And the fresh food market really is directly tied to the price of fossil fuels, like it or not. That's just the way it is. So right now, their distribution network has just become this huge web of Whole Food stores. Right?
But watch, you'll see them make a deal with Tesla, and they'll all of a sudden have the first electric vehicles that are delivering all these things across the country.
Mark, drones, right? They're just going to have drones flying around, dropping food and groceries.
That's scary.
They're going to have
artificial intelligent drones.
No, they're going to have driverless trucks that Tesla and them will create that are already running on solar power. They're not already replacing the supercharged centers with solar. So now they're going to be solar supercharged centers on top of that. And on top of that, they're going to be autonomous. So all you do is come out and it'll be on your front porch. It's already that way with Instacart and Google delivery. This is a huge shout against Google's delivery as well, because I get a Google delivery where I actually can order my food and all my non-perishables, and they come in boxes to my house. And then I order my Instacart, and I can have all my fresh fruits and vegetables delivered to my house as is right now. I do this all the time. I don't even go into stores anymore because the convenience is acceptable there. So it's already, drones are a concept, but they're already doing this on the ground.
The stores miss you. The stores miss you. The stores want you back, ATM.
Oh, but some people will always love to choose their produce.
I know. I think it's great. I love it.
We found that with delivery of cannabis when we were shut down by the government for a temporary. I went to delivery exclusively, and what we found out from delivery exclusively is exactly that: is the majority of people, especially Californians, are highly educated on cannabis, and they want to see their cannabis. They don't want to be like, here's what you have choice of, this one thing, good day. They want to be able to like at the store, they get. Whenever somebody asks for a genetic, we pull out 3 to 4 different one of that same kind, so they can pick between those, and they'll be like, oh, this looks better than this, and that's what their choice is. To just show up with the delivery and just be told exactly, that's something that the market does not necessarily want for cannabis.
Well,
how do you find that, like with your avocados and your tomatoes and your produce that gets delivered directly to your house? I mean, I like to go to the store and pick out my cantaloupe. I like to feel it and smell it, and I don't want someone else picking out my cantaloupe for me. How do you like that procedure? I mean, is
9 times out of 10 they nail it. You know, the thing is, you know, it's listed as what it is. If you want organic cantaloupe, they will pick up an organic cantaloupe. You can select no, that if there isn't that organic cantaloupe, then cancel it, or select something else. So they can have a choice where you can select either another organic cantaloupe or conventional. So you can have that selection in the menus currently on if that organic cantaloupe isn't there. Now, could I pick something right myself better than somebody? Most likely. But as I said, 9 times out of 10, they get it right. And for me, the convenience is better than actually going down. I prefer to go down to a farmer's market, to a locals farmer's market, which I tend to do. But even they're doing that now. They're going to locals farmers market. So even that takes a hell of a lot of the guessing games out. So Instacart not only goes to my local market, but on certain weekdays they go to local farmers market. So you can actually select that as well. And you know you're getting organic, local, and locally supporting, and that's where your dollars are going. You're just not having to deal with the driving around, the parking, and all those realities.
Yeah, my Instacart is my son and my wife who go over to the Amish farm on the other side of the hill and buy all Amish vegetables all throughout this time of the year. So we have our own Amish farmer.
20 years ago, Woody's wife Laura had a company in Los Angeles called Yoganics, and they home delivered organic fruits and vegetables. And they gave you a list of all the ones that were available the week, and you would check them all off, the ones you wanted, and they would prioritize those in your box, and you would get other stuff. But, we were pretty open-minded to other organic fruits and vegetables, but every week we used to get a couple boxes. We would get the fruit and we get the vegetables, and I thought it was fantastic because it also, it really helped the farmers in a lot of ways get to their customer.
But it also gave you recipes as well. So that was also, so you got recipes. If something was regional or seasonal, it gave you seasonal recipes. So it also broadens your recipe base so that if you already had something in mind for the fruits and vegetables that were coming to you, great. But if you didn't, because we do something or did something for our hospice patients where it was farm fresh to you. It's a local organic farm, and they do the same thing. They would deliver organic vegetables. Because we realized when we were dealing with hospice patients that cannabis is an essential tool, but it is a tool. You need to take care of your health. Eating properly is one thing. So I highly recommend supporting these types of local box organic vegetable delivery services, because you're supporting the farmers. And even if it's not ripe, as you know, Dr. Sheldon, you just leave it on the shelf a couple of days and it will ripen in time. I've never gotten past ripe things from that type of delivery. I've usually gotten things that are, pre-ripe.
Yeah, I think they pick them pre-ripe because they know it's going to ripen on the delivery service. But yeah, how good it's packaged, because certain vegetables will bruise quite a bit when they're shipped, and so last thing you want to get is an apple that's all bruised up, or avocado, or a pear that's all bruised up.
Dr. Sheldon, I shit you not, because I worked in Pennsylvania on a horse farm, and I used to go to the Amish or Amish, depending on. I want to try Amish grown pot. I bet you their organic cannabis is fucking dick in the dirt, amaze balls. I mean,
yeah.
Wait a minute. Do the Amish grow tobacco? I don't.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Really?
Yes, they do. Yeah, if there's a market for it and it's agriculture, the Amish grow it. The Amish will grow anything.
But they don't smoke, do they? But by that I meant
you watch reality TV or not.
No, by that I meant tobacco.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think they're allowed.
Really, not even a pipe.
Oh, maybe they are. I don't know. I know they're not allowed to consume alcohol. I mean, the strict Amish folks. I mean, they don't use electricity. They don't use shoes. They're always in bare feet. They have dirt floors in their homes. The Pennsylvania Mennonites, they have like motorized tractors and vehicles and shit like that. But you'll see an Amish guy out there with a team of horses plowing a field like his great grandfathers did. You know, it's crazy that they're still farming in this very, very, you know.
They control when I went to the mills, the sawmills, because I get the sawdust for the animal bedding, and they controlled it. So every time I went down there, I would actually have to wear long sleeves so my tattoos wouldn't show. Otherwise, they wouldn't deal with me. You know, they're that strict still back in the 90s. You know, they're socially about what they are, but it also depends. There's different sects. There's different, right. You know, there can be as strict by the book or as close to Mennonite as even possible, you know. So you have the whole gamut, but for the most part, they're very strict. And I can't say I've ever seen an Amish smoke tobacco myself, but I know that they grow it. They grow everything great. They don't fuck around when it comes to farming. Them and barns. You want an Amish barn.
Yeah, they do lots of barn raisings. But, you know, the one thing about the Amish is, again, they know the value of what they bring in terms of marketing. You know, like there's I've said this story before, probably not on Hash Church, but we went in one time to buy our turkey. And there was a line, again, Range Rovers and BMWs parked at the Amish place where there's horses and buggies lined up, right? And then you basically have these people who buy their Amish turkeys. Well, this girl behind the counter was probably like about, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old. And she was rifling through a stack of 20s like a Vegas dealer. I'll be right with you, sir. And just this very stark image of very simple lifestyle, but just huge in understanding the business is what they do. And there was this line of people out the door who wanted their Amish this and their Amish that. And so they know the value of a buck, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, I think that is the high note of Hash Church, and we should probably end it on the high note, an Amish story about turkeys and Range Rovers.
Sorry to drag on about that, Mark.
No, that's okay. I honestly said I was going to end it at 12, and it's 12. It was awesome having Tim Blake come in. Thank you for that, Todd. Good to see what he's up to, and I'm sure we'll hear more from him as the time goes by, or at least maybe get to see. Well, maybe Tony will go and film it or something, and we'll get to see more about how that event went. And I guess thanks, Chimera, for coming in. As always, the panelists, Todd McCormick, Etienne Fontaine, Skunkman Sam, Mark Chaldone, Johnny B, and Darren Massey, who have split. And anyone that I'm forgetting, I sure don't mean to. Skunkman Sam, everybody. Yeah, I think I said it. Thanks, everybody, for watching Hash Church this week. I think it was pretty darn. And happy Father's Day. You know what? I will end it with a picture of my father, Chief Gary Richardson of the fire department. R.I.P. Dad, love you.
For all those who have fathers who have passed on, like yours, Marcus.
Exactly. R.I.P. to the fathers. And for those that haven't, have a great day with your families and friends. Peace out, everybody.
Call your dad.
Much love, everyone.